Hello and welcome to the Juggling Podcast, the Patreon exclusive Juggling Podcast. Although this episode is not a Patreon exclusive, we're releasing this online as a podcast audio. People will be able to get it, and also here on the YouTube video as well. Joining me is Juliana. Say hello, Juliana.
Hello, everyone.
So if you are listening to this just as an audio experience, just know that there is a version of this on YouTube where you can actually see us talking. And the reason why we're doing this is the easiest way of doing a live stream podcast to be able to answer questions from the chat room. We've got 63 people watching and participating in the chat room right now. It's a really good thing. Lots of people are really interested in this discussion, and so you can actually watch this live stream. No, you'll watch a video replay of this live stream, which I'm going to upload starting at this point. So the point of this discussion, and why I want everybody to be able to see this, is that this year there's been lots and lots of questions about the voting methods. You've seen them, haven't you, Juliana?
Oh, yes.
And lots of people have strong opinions about what it all means, and like there's a rule change and things like that. So we're going to get to those. First, we're going to talk about game design and what I design the top 40 jugglers of the year, and this whole thing to be what it is, what the incentives of I am, what incentives of other people are, the how this goes out with counting votes, people trying to get on the chart, and vote stuffing and things like that. And then we'll get to what's new for this year, which is the experimental rule change, which people could only vote for a maximum of 5 women and only vote for a maximum of 5 men. So we're going to get to those things, and people will get to the questions that people put here in the chat. Again, thank you very much to Ken and Joe and Shai Ben. Oh, I called you Ben before, but it's Shai Ben Yosef and Ofek and other people who've already asked questions. We will get to those, but because this is a Patreon benefit, and it was normally we do the podcast before the end of the month, and now it's January. Just want to say a big thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. And specifically to, let's go through them, Joel and Kathy and Chris and Ben, thank you very much. Martin, Flo, Hendrik, Matt, Cool Beans, thank you all very much. Craig, Robert, Gerald, John, Mark, Jeremy, Juliana, you're still the supporter of me on Patreon. That's really nice.
Support you, yes.
Greg, Keith, the mysterious Mark, Pierre, and then we get down to the $1 per month. And also Anonymous as well. But then we get down to the $1 a month supporters. And then I'm not going to list all your names because there's like 50 of those people. But thank you so much. Really, really so much. Because I just want to say this support made it possible for me to do this. Like, it would be really difficult for me to take time off work this year, considering I don't have any work. But the work that I have been doing, it was possible for me to pretty much take all of December off. Like, I was getting paid for doing some game design, like computer game design stuff, through up until the end of October, some extra work that I was doing that on November. But then I said, look, I'm going to need more time in December, and I got it, and that's purely because of the patron support that I've had this year. I guess what are we up to? About $200 or whatever it is, $200 and something per month. And that throughout this year, I was hoping of being able to spend that money on organizing the Fight Night Combat end of year championships, but it turns out that it wasn't a year for that. It wasn't a year for that. So it was great to be able to spend a lot of time on this. And so, yes, it just allowed me to spend time. And some people have asked me, how much time have I put into this? You were actually asking me before.
I asked you, so you prepared some numbers in your head?
Again, I don't know, but I'm thinking in the month of December, probably about 120 hours I've put into this project. And that was even compressed into a short amount of time because I was expecting to be able to open voting on like the 1st of December, close it like a week later. And then after closing it a week later, I'd be able to like spend a week compiling the votes and then a few weeks like releasing videos or working on whatever the final video was going to be or whatever the final project was going to be. And this year it was more work than I expected because it turns out like I just signed myself up for like more work, but I wanted it to be an event. Sometimes I've just like, here it is, here, like I put together clips and videos and then we release it and it's all released on one time. But a few years ago, I say a few years ago, it's probably like 8 years ago, 7 years ago, I did a thing where I copied a trick or a little routine of every juggler. Yes. That took way more work than this.
Epic work.
It was epic work. But I released one video at a time, and the energy around that, like the energy around like releasing it and then people talking about that juggler and then liking that and then and then wait a few days, and then here's another video, and here's another one. But it took me too long to do because it's just a lot of work. It was like March or something by the time I finished releasing who was the top juggler in 2014 or 13 or whenever I did that. But I did that last year. I was like, okay, one video per juggler, and I had the information on the little screen on the right hand side, and then the video would move over so on the left hand side, the video would move over to the right hand side, and you could see some information about the juggler, and then but everything was then shared in this wide format, like 16 by 9, which works great on YouTube, and it was a very successful YouTube video, like 100,000 views on YouTube of the final result. But individually, they were a bit tricky to do, and then I realized that people actually wanted the Instagram story versions, but it was always then like it just wouldn't work because it was like the wrong thing. So what I did this year is I decided to release one video per juggler, but it turns out it wasn't one video per juggler. It turned out to be 4 separate video edits per juggler. So I released one which would work as a square, and often that would just be like the one in widescreen but like cropped down either side, so cropped but sometimes when, for example, Taylor Glenn, at one point she's juggling in the middle and then she juggles out to the side and then she juggles this side. So what I had to do is then make another version of hers where I would shift that video so she would stay in the middle of the square, so she wouldn't be like half cut off. And quite a few jugglers, they frame up their shots for the nice widescreen, which looks fantastic on YouTube, looks fantastic on Facebook, looks fantastic on Twitter, but on Instagram with the square. And I wanted the native video resolution or aspect ratio of 1:1.
And now also Final Cut Pro gives you these...
It can do, but that's not the way I did it. I'm not going to get into how I did the video editing. I'm just saying I did that. And then I made a version which was upright, this narrow version, and then but I only wanted one text, so I made the text, the name at the very bottom, and things like that. So so then I could I could share this, and then I put extra work on top of myself. Oh yeah, and also the final version was the one with no commentary, which was just being included in the final video, which now you can see as the top 40 jugglers. I've got that. That's a different one there. Anyway, it's So it's
on the YouTube.
So there was like four distinct versions of each video, each one that I had to export individually.
Yes.
Or 3 of which I had to export individually, and then the final version, which was all the way through.
And you said you did all this work in December, but ahead of the time,
you
already did work. I remember.
Yeah.
You made some music.
I made some of the music.
And then you already started gathering together all the footage that you might need for the jugglers.
So that's the thing. You could ask how much time did I spend per juggler on the video edit, but that's not where the time goes. The time goes like, I got to find some footage. So this person put out 80 Instagram clips this year, or 50 Instagram clips. I'm not going to watch all of them, but I've got to go through and find the ones, like which were the ones which were most received, which are the ones that they're most proud of, which ones got most views and likes. Pick those ones out. Do they work together? Are they too similar? All that kind of stuff. If people put out like some of the easiest ones were the international, the IGA
trick of the month.
IGA tricks of the month. I'm like, great, because the people have actually put in effort into making it look good, and people are putting in effort into like framing it and color correction. But then there's some, like, for example, Spencer Androli, he's in this room which there's like loads of mold on the wall. It's like not actually, I mean, the juggling is amazing, it's really great, but it's sort of like, that's going to be work. So then I've got to do color correction to make sure the mold doesn't, because I'm a perfectionist when it comes to video editing, and I have to abandon projects. It's really difficult for me to look through and then see, like, Maggie Rusak has got like a dead spot in the middle of her camera, and it goes across the clips, and I pick out clips from different parts, and every little pixel in the middle of her thing, and I'm like,
nobody else sees it.
I need to fix that now. No, but most jugglers' videos I had to do color correction so it fits with their other clips, because most people are like, here's a video, share it on Instagram, here's another video, share it on Instagram, here's another one, but all of them are in different, like maybe even the same location but under different lighting conditions, and you have to go to do the color correction. So that's a real tricky thing to do. So it took a lot of time with the video editing, and then just like I say, finding the clips. That's the other thing that I had to do as well. For example, I was just saying Spencer Androli, there wasn't like a final trick, which I was like, I want everybody's final moment on screen to be a character moment or their biggest trick of the year or whatever it's going to be for each one of these 24-second clips. So for Spencer Androli's, I found another video that he was in, one of Lewis Kennedy's ones, and took the final trick of that one, and I was like, he had the final trick in this compilation of like some amazing tricks by some of the best club jugglers doing ball tricks. And I was like, all right, so that's why I found that trick. So I just took the end of Lewis Kennedy's video featuring Spencer Androli. It was a better ending than something I could find in his tricks of the month. So like I say, a lot of work, a lot of thought going into this. I'm trying to make all the jugglers look as best as I possibly can, fixing their video editing, fixing their cropping, fixing their color balance and exposure and all that kind of stuff. It takes a lot of work. Yeah, also the music, I wrote it all from scratch, which to be honest was more work than I expected. I was like, oh, this is great, it's just 24 seconds. But then like, oh no, I need 17 minutes worth of music. And if you say to any composer or any musician, give me 17 minutes of music, you're like, oh fuck. So again, a lot of it was loop and it was repeated and things, but yeah, that was a bigger project that I did. But I really enjoyed that. Like for me, it's not that I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't hard work. I mean, it was hard because it was a lot of it. But like, I really enjoy making music. That's what I do. I'm a musician. I really enjoy video editing. It's what I do. I'm a video editor. So all of this stuff is stuff I enjoy. So I don't want anyone's pity that I put in this work. I'm just saying
there is a lot of work included.
There is a lot of work included. All right, so I think that wraps it up. Oh no, I just want to say, I don't know what everybody thinks about this, but what I wanted to do is, by sharing over the course of 3 weeks, I had a top 40 jugglers schedule. So I started on the 19th of December, and I realized by starting on the 19th of December, I'd have to post on average 3 videos per day, plus 4 on the last day. But sometimes I only posted 2, and sometimes I did 4 videos. And the reason why this was difficult, because again, another thing that I want to do is I wanted not me to be the first person to reveal it, but the last person on the charts. The idea being I would send, was it Sarah Noel? I would say that she's the top juggler and then send her a video. She would download the video, upload the video again as an Instagram story or post. I wasn't quite sure what people wanted to do, but it turns out stories is where you tag people. The stories is what it is. So she put a video of that, tagged Luca Fedmengus in the next video. And then he would tag the next person, tag that. So all of the time when I was setting this up, I was like, I really hope people keep up with this posting schedule, because I've got a schedule to keep to and they've got to post there. So sometimes they're like, yeah, sure, I'll do it in the morning. And I'm like, yeah, great. But don't leave it too long, because we've got to get to the number 1 juggler before midnight. On
their morning might be a different morning to ours.
I did have some issues with that. With suddenly like, oh, it's 7.
Oh, it had to go from Australia.
He's in
Japan
he's in Japan,
to America.
And so I was like, oh no, I'm going to leave it this person.
South America or
wherever. I think Maggie Rusek doesn't live in Australia, so that was actually slightly handier. Slightly handier. So there we go. That's it. So I think that really enjoyed it. So I just want to say, people listening to the podcast, people watching in the chat now, do you enjoy this slow reveal of the people on the top 40? Like, I'm just going to say, for me, it's a lot of work, because even this time, it wasn't just me sharing it on a schedule like I did last year. It was also getting in contact with somebody saying, would you be happy to share the next one? Yes. Sending them the video, waiting for them to do it. Me just sitting here like refreshing Instagram, waiting for them to post it, and then go, all right, they posted it. How long do I need to leave it? Maybe an hour, because then people who have done the thing and followed in the next one. It was a lot of work. I really enjoyed this year. Just like I say, just the presentation, and we'll see the final video, which like the presentation isn't the final. I mean, the revealing of the chart isn't the final project.
No.
Or the product. The final product is the YouTube video, which is 17 minutes long. That's the thing that's going to have the longevity. That's the thing that people are going to be watching when they're like, oh, let's watch the top 40 jugglers. 17 minutes is actually quite long. I think a really good thing would be like when you go, we'll have it down to 10 minutes or 8 minutes. 8 minutes is really good, but then you're down to, instead of 24 seconds per juggler, you're starting to get down to 7.5 seconds per juggler. So in other words, it's purely an information thing. You don't get to know the juggler. You don't get that moment where you can see them smile. That's not even long enough to see Delaney Bayless's 7 club run. I doubled the length of her video pretty much just to be able to fit her 7 clubs in there as well. So
it was an advent calendar of juggling. Yeah.
Us to follow each other. Yeah, and this is the thing. I want the top 40 jugglers to be kind of like a debate. Not really so much a debate, but like not a debate. No. I want it to be an event. Let me put it that way. I want people, as it comes out, people to go, this juggler, I don't know them. There's a link to them. I'll go follow them. I look through their Instagram. Then I go over to YouTube, find their video on YouTube. Oh, they're in the tricks of the month. I'll go see that. Oh, they're from that country. Let me see what the juggling scene like is there. And everyone gets like, 4 or 5 hours to do that, or 3 hours, or whatever it is, and then the next one comes out and they can go on that journey. So I waited until they were all out and then watched the playlist. Yeah, that's perfectly a good way of doing it too. I put the playlist there. I put the hashtag on Instagram if you want to look through them that way. Although, to be honest, when you search for the hashtag, they all come up in different orders.
Yes,
they don't do
but
it
also you have a stories highlight thing where you also can find all the individual stories.
Yeah, if you just want to watch the video, the highlights I made in Instagram. Where is that? Instagram on highlights. Yeah, so you can actually, if you just click on the top 40, you can actually just, if you want to fast forward through it, you can just do the Instagram story version of getting all the way through. If you just want the list of names,
or
on
if you've missed
Twitter,
the tags,
I put it all in one thread on Twitter. So you find the first one, or find the thread, say show thread, and then you can just watch through all 40 videos on Twitter.
People, I can tell you, these many social media channels is challenging, and there were a little bit of, oh no, I posted the wrong video,
and upload the wrong video.
So
the
many
next
things
person.
to just.
So again, I don't want to get into how difficult it was. I really enjoy a big project like this, but it has been my full-time job pretty much since the beginning of December. And also with the whole, I was gonna do the start the voting a week earlier than I did, but I was like, I'll announce this rule change. Everyone can get the debate out the way. Everyone can find all the jugglers they want. They can rethink their list. Everyone has a week. We'll talk about the rule change later. Everyone has a week to think about the rule change, and then we'll start the vote counting. Start the open the voting, and then do the vote counting a week later. So it was a bit compressed. But even that first week when I announced that there was going to be a rule change, it was almost a full-time job. Or it took the energy of a full-time job just to be able to do that. Thankfully, actually, I'm okay with taking this time off. I was given some money by the Brandenburg, the state where we live, just outside of Germany. Outside of Berlin in Germany. I got some funding for them from them to work on a musical project, which isn't this, but it's great. But because of that, we got these extra microphones. We got some different musical and other equipment to be able to work on music stuff, and it's really handy. And apparently, I didn't have to finish the project by the end of the year, but I had to spend the money by the end of the year. So I haven't actually done that either. But I will get to it, and so that's a musical project which now I can work on in January, February, and I have to write a report from that as well. So yes, again, thanks to the Patreon supporters, but also thank you very much to the Brandenburg state government. That's really handy. Right, let's get on to it. I just saw a question here as well. Someone, Kestrel Design says, wait, Luke is a game designer.
Luke is many things.
Luke is many things, but one thing that I really like, I'm quickly going to take a drink because I realize I've just done 16 minutes almost without a pause.
Yep. I try sometimes to do stuff, but you talk.
Do you have anything else to say about what I've just said? I think we covered most of the things.
We covered it, but yeah.
Okay, just so we know, just so everyone who's listening to the podcast or watching in the live chat, 70 people watching in the live chat, I had to keep pausing the YouTube playlist to look people up on Instagram. Yeah, the thing is, if you watch it on Instagram, you don't have to do that. You can just click on their names because they're all like that. Me and Juliana have been talking about the top 40 jugglers a lot in the past month and a half. Running up to it, we're always like, what are we going to do this year? Are we going to do like individual videos? What's going to happen? How is it going to be? All of that kind of stuff. We are now going to try and condense a month's worth of discussion about game design and all these other issues.
Every day a little bit, now condensed in now.
Because all the time, like even just beforehand, like 2 hours ago over lunch, we were saying, and I was saying that, and Julian was like, oh, what do you think about this? I'm like, we're going to have this conversation like at 4 o'clock. Do everyone else have the conversation now? So it's really difficult for me now to get clear in my head all of the things that I've thought that I want to tell people on this podcast and explain about these rules, how the votes count. But I have had a few questions, specific questions. Again, we'll get to some of these in the I
try to do a little bit of moderation, and like if I think of this could be a basic question that should be answered, I will say something. But I think we should start with what this list is and what's the intention.
Well, yeah, okay.
Why is it there?
Live stream podcast notes. Okay, so game design. You say Luke is a game designer. Yes, it has been something I've been doing for many years in a row. So if you think all the way back to 2004, I was at the juggling convention, and the young people at the juggling convention didn't really have anything to do. They were all there. They were all jugglers. They were all young jugglers, but they maybe a bit too young to hang out in the bar. And the British Juggling Convention is very sort of like, hey, you get together like that. And the young jugglers didn't have anything to do. There was nothing of theirs. So I decided to create something called the British Young Juggler of the Year show. And the British Young Juggler of the Year show, it was based on, or the idea was it being based on the BBC Young Musician of the Year. In other words, it's a show. Young people can perform and do that kind of stuff. So I had to come up with a way to make it that everybody would be happy to perform in the show. There was lots of ways that you could be rewarded for being in the show. So I had different prizes. There was the Judges' Choice Award, where we had a panel of 4 judges. They would choose. There was individual conventions that could award prizes. I was kind of basing it on the European circus festival kind of way, where like, oh, this city gives an award, or this place gives an award. And the idea of the convention award, that you would get you would have a person from that convention say, we're going to pick someone to perform in our convention show. Another award was, then we had the gold and silver awards, where if you did well, you would get silver. If you did really well, you get a gold. But it wasn't just 1 gold, 1 silver, 1 bronze. It was anyone could do. But then the person who got it was who got the total of the young juggler of the British Young Juggler of the Year was an audience vote, which meant that nobody in the audience could complain at all, ever. Nobody could complain if the person that they think should have won didn't win, because everyone got 1 vote, and all the jugglers came out. They had boxes in front of them, like with slots in the top. They put their props in front of their boxes, and then they walked away. And then everyone from the audience came forward with 1 bit of paper. Everyone who came in got 1 bit of paper. They put it in the top. And here's the thing. There's a way of doing game design where you can align the incentives of the people taking part, which in other words give them lots of opportunities for awards, lots of opportunities for prizes, but then we need 1 winner. We're selecting 1 winner, and in this case it was what you call a first past the post, or was it a plurality? So it's not who gets the majority of the votes, because nobody gets a majority, because there was 10 jugglers or 8 jugglers, but whoever got the most amount. And John Udry won. I think John Pete won the next year, so I can't remember who it was. The Johns. Some of the Johns won, and he got the most votes, and nobody could complain. It's like, well, who did you vote for? That person won? Great. So it aligns the incentives of the audience, the incentives of the people taking part, and also the incentives of me, because this was something that like I was organizing, and my name is attached to as someone who did that. That competition is now run every year. Not this year, not 2020. Oh, not last year. Oh, we're next year, aren't we? Happy New Year, everyone. Yeah. But it's in the same way, if you know what I mean. It's always run the same way. And this is the thing. Align the incentives of those taking part, participating, those who are voting, and me as somebody who's organizing, align those incentives. And that's what I always do with the Fight Night Combat, designing the system around there. I was like, well, how does it work in rankings in golf, in chess, in tennis, and in rock climbing? I looked at dozens of different ways of ranking people, and I worked out a way that I want to award people who are very good, but I also want to award participation. And awarding participation is very important, because it means that just taking part, if you just take part, you're always going to benefit. Just taking part will always move you up the rankings rather than down the rankings. Those things are really, really important. And
we know that by taking part, you will get better.
Yes.
That's
just the point.
A fact.
If you get better, you'll want to take part more. If you take part more, you get better. Yes. So, and also game design, like I say, this year I was paid for like 4 months worth of work for doing game design consultation and working on a game design. This is computer game stuff. But this is something I've always been involved in. And the top 40 jugglers is that too. So if you list all of my goals as somebody who it runs the chart on my incentives, you list all of the incentives of the jugglers who would like to appear on the chart, and then you list all the incentives of all the people who vote on the chart, who have a say in who wins, okay? And you list all of them and you put them all in order, you can start working out why the system is as it is. Now, the way it is as it is, it wasn't completely in my control at the start, but I recognized an opportunity when people filled out a survey in 2003, which had nothing to do with the top 40 jugglers chart at all. No. But it was this thing where like people were listing these out, and I was like, oh, there's loads of data here. I'm going to get that data out. And the next year I was like, I'm going to put the same survey there and then see if the data has changed. And it evolved over the first few years, and how I did the vote counting evolved over the first few years. And then I opened it up to YouTube, and then it was all by YouTube comments, and then suddenly 4 times as many people were voting, and 10 times as many people were voting as at the start. And I evolved it from then. Also
first it became a pure database thing, right? It became like, oh, you just wanted the list. But then at some point you noticed, okay, I can do something with the list.
In the first year.
Yes.
For me, it was just a list.
Yeah.
I'm going to count up these results.
Right.
And then it got to the point where like, I want to share these results, but the sharing of the results for me, all right, let's go through these. And it's very important. These are my goals and incentives. For A, my goals and incentives. B, jugglers' goals and incentive who might want to be on the chart or who appear on the chart. C, the voters' goals and incentives. Now, none of these are more important than the others except mine, because I'm me, and it's my project, which I'll get to in a second. But all of these, there's these three factors of people involved, and all of them have goals. Some goals are more important, some incentives are more important than others. And it's okay to prioritize some things above other things. And some people won't be able to cope with that, but all voting systems do this, you know.
Yes. All
voting systems, all ways of determining a rank or a winner will prioritize some things over other things, you know. If it was only a pure test of skill, it would just be records. But then in some cases, athletics records aren't set by people putting cameras in their rooms and doing it. They're only set at sanctioned events. And the reason they do that is because if you break a record at a sanctioned event, it can then be recognized. The judging is there. It's all computer controlled. It's timed down to a thousandth of a second rather than by whatever you can get on the video.
Everybody gets the similar equipment.
Everyone gets the same equipment. Everyone's in the same environment. Everyone traveled to the same place. Everyone's at the same altitude. All these different things, you know. So it's not like there are some records that are like that, like land speed records. You go from here to A to B, get to time that, and then from B to A, time that, and it doesn't matter where you do that. You do it on altitude or it's level ground. So that every competition to determine something has to prioritize some things over other things, and as the person who creates the list, it's down to me to decide which of these priorities, it's up to me to prioritize some goals of how this works and some incentives I want to reward above others. So let's go through some of these. A1, A is my incentives. I want to make an entertainment product, okay? This is really important for me, that this is something that me as an artist, as an entertainer, I make something which people enjoy. One of the top ones that I did was some silly rap back in 2010, which people still quote
people
at me
still want
today.
you rapping
you know,
again.
even back in the day, they were like something. Oh, look, Rhodes, you did the, you know, up,
the
down,
rapper.
in, right? Yeah, you do this silly rap song. And
and people still actually know the lyrics.
Yes, the people can still do all the lyrics.
Super
to me.
impressive.
So yeah, that's great. But then I kind of rebelled against it the next year because it was actually too popular. I didn't like it. I was like, no, I just want it to be about the results and things like that. And the next year I put out this really short video where every result flicked up in like quarter of a second, and the whole video was over in about 8 seconds. And it was just sort of like, oh, I don't have time to do this. In fact, I put about as much time into that as I did into the previous one where, you know, I wrote music and things. But it was because every slide, it was like a slide deck that I made, and each one of those was individually graphic designed, and I'd got still images and things in there.
I remember that was the one where people had to put the effort in to pause every time they wanted to actually look at it.
And it was my own kind of like, you know, like as a comedian.
There was a lot of discussion about that. Yeah.
But it was me at the time. I was like, oh, I don't know what it is. But then I was actually know what I am doing. Like at the time, I wasn't quite sure. But what I am actually doing is now, again, it's changed as times go. But for me, right at the moment, the most important thing I'm doing is making an entertainment product. I want to make something that is entertaining for jugglers to watch. I want to make something which is entertaining for me to make. I want to make something which is generally something which puts smiles on people's faces and is a great entertainment product, in the same way that when you watch the Top of the Pops, or if you watch, you know, follow these countdown charts like something best jugglers, you know, these listicles, these, you know, rundown
Time
videos.
Magazine Person of the Year.
Not that. Oh. Don't put that aside. That's a news organization who is trying to influence political events. Let's put that all aside.
Okay,
what I'm trying to do is make an entertainment product. That is a high priority. Second for me is that I want to continue a personal creative project, which is like I say a full-time job each December or whatever it is. Certainly this year, because I'm not performing or traveling and things like that. Are people actually chatting here? The last chat message came through like 7 minutes ago, so I wasn't quite sure.
People listening to us.
Okay, people are listening to me. So I want it to be a continuation of a personal creative project. And I know this is weird to say, but this means more to me than it does to anybody else. Lots of people care about this chart. There's lots of discussion about this. Lots of people are very passionate about the top 40 jugglers, especially this year with this experimental rule change and things like that. And just 2020 is a weird year.
People had the time.
People have the time. There's lots of debate. Lots of people have made videos about it. Lots of people have asked me questions about it. I understand that other people care about this, but this is a personal creative project for me. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that what I'm saying now is the highest priority from the people taking part and the people voting. I'm just saying, for me, this is a high level of what do I say? Yes, it's a high priority for me, that I can keep working on something that I enjoy working on, that I can put my name on and say, yes, this is something I'm proud of. Because in past years, I haven't been proud of it. Like I say, in 2011 or whenever I put out that short one, it was kind of like, I was like, oh, I don't have time. And my headspace wasn't there. And so, thank you very much, Pip. So it's one of those things that I'm like, all right, this for me is really important. Okay, third priority, A3, an online project. So what this really is it's an online project by an English-speaking person. And so what I want to do is reflect this. I want to reflect what stood out in the mostly online, mostly English-speaking sub-community or subculture of juggling. Yeah. So it's difficult for me to... what's that? Oh, it's just a kid. Don't worry about it. It's one of those things that, like, I don't want this to be Luke's favorite jugglers of the year, because otherwise it would just be like, oh, who did I follow on Instagram, or who did I see at a juggling convention? It would be very me focused. I'm also not really interested in it in being who are the best jugglers in the world or who is the most represented, because that's actually a very, very difficult logistical thing to say. I'm going to get all of the top jugglers in Japan, and then all the top jugglers in India, and then all the top jugglers in Australia. Well, Australia's English speaking, so that's a slightly different thing, but I'm going to get all the best jugglers in Chile, and then go put them up against the best jugglers in Argentina, and then put them up against the best jugglers in Brazil. And then the Germans
Russians.
and the Spanish and the Italians and the French. Like, no, that's not what this is. What this is an online project by an English-speaking person for other online, mostly English-speaking jugglers, the English-speaking juggling community, which means a lot of Europeans, a lot of North Americans, like Americans, Canadians, Australian people will probably be higher represented. I'm not trying for it to be more than that, because that is a higher priority for me to do that, because it's a tricky... What I'm trying to say, it's a tricky thing for me to go, right, worldwide. Like, I'm going to put a video out in every language, in every country, and all that kind of stuff, because it's impossible for me to do that. I was looking at before, I was like, if I do next year want to include more nationalities, that means I'd have to have definitely a video in Portuguese, a video in Russian, a video probably in German, certainly English as well, like that. Probably Hindi, because Hindi is sort of like one of the biggest spoken. And I was looking through the different languages, and I was thinking Mandarin Chinese, but YouTube is blocked in China. Facebook is blocked in China. Like, how am I going to work this out? Like, in Russia, most people don't have Facebook pages. They all have like vk.com pages, whatever the Russian Facebook is. Like, I can't address all of those different markets. So again, this is something that reflects, for me, as this is my personal goal for this, is that it reflects the mostly online, mostly English speaking scene. And if it doesn't have an equal number of Spanish jugglers or Spanish-speaking jugglers to English-speaking jugglers, that's fine with me, that's fine. And then we get all the way down to, let's say, about like all these other considerations, we get all the way down to A10, which is I want this to be very scientific and very rigorous. And it's really difficult for people to understand that this being very scientific and very, very, very rigorous is actually a lower priority than it being an entertainment product, or it to be a fun product for me to work on, a creative project for me to work on, and for it to be a fair reflection of the generally online, generally English-speaking juggling world, that it's actually scientific and rigorous and stuff like that is a lower priority. It's not that it isn't a priority for me, it's just a slightly lower priority. And there's no way for me to put that this is a scientific, rigorous poll above it being an ongoing creative product or an entertainment product, you know. So
I think some of that just doesn't overlap so much.
No, it's impossible. It can't overlap. People think you can do rigorous scientific polls, but you need to do like double-blinded studies. You need to pay a polling company to poll everybody in the world, discover how much they enjoy juggling, how much they follow juggler, weight the results by that. I can't do that. That's not what I am.
No.
There are other polls, like a vote. So we're having a national election. Nobody can just vote randomly. It's not like, whoever wants to vote can take part. No, it's like you've got to be a registered voter in there. Like when I was like, I'd get the voting slips over from, like, say the Brexit referendum. Like I had to write down, I had to be a registered voter abroad, and then I'd get sent over this thing. I'd have to write it out. There's ways of designing rigorous, scientifically, valid polls. That's not this. But
also the people who are on the slip, on the places to be voted for, they have to do the steps. Like they have to go, they have to be voted in, then they have to be voted in by other people and more people and more people for in the end to appear there, which you can't do on an online jugglers thing, because you can't register everybody who juggles.
Yes, that's the thing. I could say only people who register in advance are allowed to juggle. Allowed to vote. But that means there's loads of people who wouldn't know that. Like lots of people just don't know the rules changes. Like even this year, some people voted for more than 5 men and no women. And I was like, okay, well I have a way to get around that. But it's just like they obviously not native English speakers and they didn't catch up with it. So it's really difficult for everybody to know in advance exactly when the polling day is. You can do this in a national election, but it takes an entire national news organization, multiple national news organizations,
and even then people forget it.
And even then people forget. There's actually a really good question here. Do you consider, this is from Mini Juggling Fred, do you consider your entertainment product as a combination of all years? Yes. How it evolves over the years is part of it, but that's less about it being an entertainment product for now, for the people watching in December, for people watching the video late, or the people following along in December. That's more of like is it being a personal creative project of how it's changed over the years. All right, let's put that aside. Let's now go over to the incentives of the jugglers who are taking part in, not in voting, but who want to appear on the chart. So they have their own priorities and incentives. Okay, so one thing that they might want to do, and this is what a lot of jugglers tell me about this, they say, I use the top 40 jugglers as like an incentive for me to go, like, can I make it onto the top 40 jugglers? I want to improve my skills. I need to work on my shows. I need to do videos and do workshops and all these different kinds of stuff. And they want to contribute more, either improve themselves in some way, either include themselves in some way, like improve themselves, or improve the world of juggling. Like, what can I do for other jugglers, and then maybe make it onto the chart.
They remember me and what I did for them, or what they took from me.
Yeah, or like, people who've been on the chart in the past, they'll be like, I want to get back onto the chart. Or if they may be at like in the 30 on the chart, they're like, I could do better next year. Like they haven't even thought about it. Like the top 40 jugglers outside of them are like, oh shit, I'm on the chart. And then the next they're like, it'll be really great to get up there. So that's one of the main motivations.
Yeah, and lots of people just are themselves, and people vote for them. So
that's sort of like a self-improvement, improve the world kind of thing. Another way is just recognition. Like the reason why they want to be on the chart is because they just want to be on the chart. It's cool, like a pat on the back. Hey, everyone, like that. It's sort of like, I'm on the chart. Great. Like it's not that I use the chart to do that, but it's nice to be recognized, nice to be thanked, and people just want to see their name. Like they'll scroll through the the voting video, the comments on the voting video, and they're like, oh, there's me, and they'll scroll a bit more, and they're like, oh, there's me. I do that. And that's something that I do. Like I'm just scrolling. Oh, somebody else mentioned, and I'm doing the vote counting at the same time. So, Saltimbanco, I don't know if we're going to the European Convention. I've been to every one that has happened, but we don't know if it's happening next year. Please stop spamming the chat. Ed Price, thank you very much for becoming a $1 patron. We get notifications there as well.
That's great.
So I will scroll back through the chat in a bit to catch any questions that we might have missed when I get to the end of this point. Thank you very much, Ed, if you're watching in the chat. I guess you are. 91 people are. It would be really weird if he didn't do this. Thank you very much. You can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Luke Birch. Okay, and the other thing that you can have, the other reason you can have to, like, say, I made the chart, is purely for bragging rights. And I've kind of separated out sort of like, I want to be recognized. But then also there's bragging rights, which is another thing which makes people want to make the chart just to have made the chart. Not because they like the recognition, not because they like to see other people have appreciated their juggling, and not because they want to be a better juggler and they think they deserve it, or all that kind of stuff. It's just to say, I was on the chart.
Which is absolutely fine.
Which is fine. mostly, but it's a lower priority. And this is my listing of these priorities, okay? I want people to be inspired by the chart, to improve themselves, to improve the juggling community. I want people to, like, as part for me, I want people to be able to say, oh, that's really nice to be recognized by the juggling community. Don't really care about the top 40 jugglers, but it's nice. And then I'd say I want people to just completely ignore it and just not care about it at all. And then after that, I want people to try and make the chart just to say that they've made the chart. And I'm putting that goal or incentive down in last place on purpose, which I'll get to onto the end. Okay, the third category of people who I need to do in a game design kind of thing is the incentives of the people voting on the chart. Now, what I really like, I've got a few of these. These aren't all in exact order, but this is kind of rough order of importance. Number one, to say thank you or show appreciation to their favorite juggler. So, like, I voted for you in the top 40 jugglers of the year, and you're like, oh, that's great. You voted for 10 people. Yes, but you're one of my 10 people. You know, it's a great thing. Juliana might have voted for me this year. I think you did, didn't you?
I think I did.
You did. And I didn't vote for you this year, but
I didn't get votes. Oh, also, no, I didn't juggle this year.
I don't think. Yeah, we haven't. But Juliana has got some votes. But like, people get votes, and it's really great for me at the end of the year, especially if they make it into the chart. Like, because I've been sending these videos and clips around, I was sort of like, hey, really enjoyed your votes thing this year. You made my top 10 because of this video. I thought it was the coolest video of the year.
And let me put in something here. You might think, oh, just thanking people all the time is not worth it. Let me tell you, it's worth it. Everybody who gets a message saying, hey, what you did there was great. I loved this, or you did this great. People like it.
Yeah.
Send them messages, even without the top 40s.
No, but here's the thing, to tie it back into the top 40, do tell people that you really enjoyed them. And in fact, there were a few people who I said, look, I didn't have space for you in my my top 10 jugglers this year, but I want to tell you that, like, you were really close for me. You were on my consideration list. But here's the thing, the top 40 jugglers, thank you very much, Zach McAllister, for becoming a patron.
Oh, now you support each other.
I just became a $3 patron of Zach yesterday because I want to see his videos. He's just become a $3 patron of me. Thank you very much, Zach. But here's the thing. To be able to tell someone, look at my top 10 votes, you're in my top 10 votes of the year, is important. Like, it adds extra weight, that to say, look, you're not just a favorite juggler. I'm not going to say you're my top juggler of the year, because it's not about a list in order, but that's something. Okay, the next thing that people want to do is to promote a juggler so they appear in front of more people. Say, here's a juggler that I like. I voted for like 3 other jugglers, but here's 2 jugglers who I don't think are exposed enough. I'm going to vote for them because I want them to get more recognition. And if people look through and they see this name, they're like, oh, who's this person? Yeah. And look it up. So representation is important. Like, you're supporting a juggler, or you're voting for a juggler, not because you want to tell them they're your favorite juggler, but you want to support them and to get them in.
You want to put their name out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another reason why I want people to vote, or another important reason why people vote, and that I want to encourage, this is something I want to incentivize, is so they have a more of a stake in the final thing. So lots of people, like I say, there's 90,000, 100,000 people who've watched the final rundown video from last year of Top 20 Jugglers 2019. Other videos have similar amounts, although I think that's the most for a long time.
Top 40 Jugglers.
Of the top 40 Jugglers. What did I say?
Top 20.
Top 40 Jugglers.
Of 2019.
And so if 100,000 people have watched the video, there's 100,000 views, only last year like 500 people voted, but those 500 people like that video or are more invested in that video than other people. Okay, so that's it. I just want people to enjoy the chart more because they voted for it. There's a bit of a stake. It's like, oh, I'm watching the sports event and I put some money down onto it. Or I'm seeing this movie in the theater and I paid money to see it in the theater. You're more invested when you put time and thought and effort and energy into it as well. Another reason why I like people to vote in the chart is just to reflect on the year, to go like, oh, who did I enjoy this year? Oh, I thought about that. I'm thinking through, who did I say at that convention? What video did I like there? Who am I following on Instagram? Who do I like most there? You know, whose workshop did I go to? It's literally to say, think back on the year. Yeah. Have you enjoyed the year?
And I have noticed that so much at the end of the year, you're most likely to remember, oh, last week I saw that. And then you think, oh, I now have 5 people on the list. Yeah. What are my other 5? And then you go back and think, oh, there was this one video where I was blown away.
So I want to use this as a way way for people to reflect on the year. And that another reason why I like people voting is just to be an ongoing part of the juggling community. And when I mean that, I'm just saying like, oh, did you vote for, like, just a conversation, like at a convention. Who did you vote for in the top 40 jugglers of last year? Oh, I didn't vote at all. Oh, that's a pity. But did you see the chart? Yes. Whatever it is like that. Just to be part of the conversation for allow people to be more part of the conversation than just having seen something. It's a participation project for everyone. Like everyone can participate. And then we go ... and then we get down to C10, which is someone wants to vote in the chart because the only juggler that I know said, would you vote for me in the chart? And they're like, what chart? Top 40 Jugglers of the Year chart. What's that? Well, it's a popularity. How do I do it? Here's a link. Okay, I go over there and I just write your name down. Yeah, just write my name there in the chart. Great. So I'm just saying that is a motivation that people have, but that motivation of people voting comes below, showing appreciation to jugglers, promote jugglers that they think need more representation. They want to have a stake in the final result, to reflect better on their year, to be an ongoing part of the juggling community, and then like ... loads of other reasons why people will vote. And then at the bottom, because the only juggler that they know asked them to vote in the chart, which is totally fine if you're somebody's mother. Like I just saw someone in the chart and I know she has a mother. I know it's the mother of somebody who missed out on the top 40 jugglers chart this year by not many votes. This is Simeon Graham, who I'm talking about. Juliane voted for him, didn't get quite enough votes. And I don't mind that somebody saying, hey, Mum, would you vote in the chart? In fact, I can actually, let me bring up the voting thing. I'm not going to show this on the screen, but I can actually show how many people had how many people voted for just one person. Yeah. And generally, it's like this. Zach McAllister had one person vote just for him. Wes Peden had one person cast one vote, not 10 votes, but one vote just for him. Like Luke Burridge, I'm just mentioning me here, had one person who voted just for me and stuff like that. So those like saying, hey, Mum, vote for me, or hey, vote for me, like that, it doesn't create a big tension on the chart. And it's fine because, like, there's who's here at the top. Mothers. Yeah, we all have mothers and say, would you vote for me? Great, like that. It's fine. Like a family member, fine. Like, say, Zach McAllister, one family member of Zach McAllister coming over and say, oh, I only know one juggler, I'll just vote for them. Great, like that. And I've always had let me just wrap that up. Those are the goals and incentives of me doing it, A. B, the jugglers who want to take part in the chart or appear on the chart, and C, the people who want to vote for it. Those are all the incentives that I'm juggling here with how I do the vote counting and how I do, like, how I process the vote, how I put it this way, how I say how to vote, how I present the voting video, how I collect all the comments, the things I do there, the computer program that I've written, all the scripting that I've done to go through all this kind of stuff, and then the voting processes that I have to discard some votes, which has happened more this year than ever before, but I do have those things. And I have to have all these in place because let me go all the way back to the very top of all of this, the top incentive, my own personal one, which is I want to make an entertainment project. And I can't just allow Boaty McBoatface to happen because that's entertaining for the people who are jamming the chart up. But Boaty McBoatface is now like a meme. Like, don't allow, if you don't know what Boaty McBoatface is, sort of like, hey, I haven't thought about the rules and there's no contingency in place. What should we name this boat? Boaty McBoatface. Yes. And like, great. Good.
We're gonna name it anyway differently.
Yeah, we're gonna name it anyway differently. And that means what I'm doing is that if I did Boaty McBoatface, what they did is they said, hey, what do you want this boat to be called? And someone suggested Boaty McBoatface, and then it got loads of votes. And they're like, oh, we're going to call it the David Attenborough because it's a research ship. And you're like, oh, I mean, the David Attenborough is a great name for a ship.
But now we also have Boaty McBoatface.
And they actually said, if you read the Wikipedia, I just looked at this up the other day. If you look at the Boaty McBoatface, they said, it did exactly what we did. We wanted to bring attention to this research vessel, which is going to be sailing around Antarctica. And it brought attention to this research vessel that's going to be sailing around. Everybody knows about this boat.
Success.
Everyone's annoyed by it. And so it did the job. The incentives of the people setting the poll were fulfilled. We want attention. It didn't reward the people taking part because we were like, you did your job for us, but we didn't do our job for you, which was to honor your vote.
Yes.
So, and that's the thing for me. The job that the job that I'm doing for the people voting in the chart is to let them show appreciation, to promote the jugglers that want to, all those like top ones before, this only because the only juggler they know asked them to vote, you know. And it's the same thing with the top two things of sort of like, yes, the jugglers who are appearing on the chart, I'm doing this chart for them to give them more motivation if they want it, to give them more goals, ways to do it, or to recognize them, or to allow other people to recognize them, and my goals. And that's why you have to put in place mechanisms to catch people who are trying to do vote stuffing.
I just saw somebody saying, what if you only know one juggler? Let me tell you my story here. I got into I knew no juggler.
Yeah.
Then I met Luke.
Yeah.
And then I saw the top 40 jugglers of the year for the first time. I didn't vote because, well, I didn't know any jugglers, so why would I vote? And then I got into it. And then I started to know people, and then I started to vote. This is how you get to know jugglers, just by looking at it first, and then going to conventions, meeting people, watching people's videos. And then at some point you can make your own, you can make your own decisions and put down what you would like. Yeah.
Oh, I just tried looking over here at the comments because that's too small for me.
Yeah, it's really.
It's a long way back. The votes, because it's on slow mode, I guess, in the hair. So I was looking to see if I had any questions that I've missed. Some people only know one juggler, and that's how they're introduced. Yeah, that's what you just replied to.
That's what I just replied to.
That is true. Some people only know one juggler. Here's the thing. If someone comes onto the chart and only votes for one juggler, like I say, that's fine. If they're someone's girlfriend or someone's mother, that's totally fine. I've always had in place right from the start of when I did this, if somebody only since 2009 when I started running this on YouTube, using YouTube comments for votes, if somebody only voted for one juggler, that was a signal to me that vote, I know it's weird to say this, but that vote counts a little bit less. So anybody, like I said before, Zach McAllister, one person voted for him and he's only got like that. That vote is actually worth 0.5.
No. One person only voted for Zach.
Yeah, okay.
And not for 10 other names.
One person only voted for Zach and not 9 other jugglers or something like that. So I've always just used that as a signal to say, this person actually, their weight, let me go back to like how much they are part of the juggling community. I'm going to reward their vote by weighting it less. So I always decreased how much the vote that would be, and it was always worth 0.5 votes. Okay, yes. It's always been the way since 2009. If one person, I have mentioned this before in other places. I've done podcasts and live streams and written about it before.
We talked about this
in the podcast a while ago, and I did a video a few years ago, vote counting process. I've talked about these issues before. But this is what I say. Like, I need to make sure that one person coming in and voting for one juggler, because sometimes getting onto the chart, the two people, there was actually 2 people with equal number of votes this year. Sarah Noel and Yuri Kintaro, what his name is, or something like that. I can't remember exactly how to pronounce his name. I'll look it up here. Yuri Quiterio. They both had 29 votes in the final count that I did. One of them had to be on the top chart. Now, if one of them has extra votes or 0.5 votes or something like that, it's fine. You know, it's okay, because again, it's not scientific and it's not the most rigorous thing, but I have to make a judgment call, because I'm not just reflecting how much a popular juggler or someone who is popular not because of their juggling can activate their fan base and to flood YouTube comments over. So let's go into detail, because people are really interested about this kind of stuff. Could you pass over that bottle of water, because I need to refill my water glass in a second. That'd be really cool.
Now we know who the one person voting just for Zach was.
What was that? Shout out to my sister-in-law. Yeah. I recognize some other people with the name McAllister voting as well, Zach, but I know, as other people do, if your son or daughter is a juggler, you get to know other jugglers, and it's fine that parents. I'm not saying parents' votes don't count, but I'm saying there's already been a way of doing it. So I'm going to talk about 4 jugglers who people might have questions about. One is DJ Sturf, another one is Flotep. Another one is Simeon Graham, and another one is Hadrian de Crozel. So I've got some data that I did here as well. So in total, DJ Sturf got around about 70 votes. Or put it this way, his name was mentioned in the comments about 70 times. Lots of people voted for him 10 times because they don't care about the chart, again, like that. If I'd have counted DJ Sturf's votes at a 1-to-1 ratio of how often they appeared in the comments, so if they did that, he would be at about the same level. DJ Sturf would be at the same level as Horvath Feedston, okay? So around about 10th place, okay? So 70 votes, you can get to about the top 10, top 15, top 10. there was 820 votes that were counted that I actually had in the final document where I collect together all of the votes. Those are people who voted suspiciously. They voted for people who came in and they were jamming the votes for only one person, but about 820. So if you spread 70 votes for Håvard Fiedsten out over 820 individual votes, when you scroll through it, you'd see that each person would vote about once, like one person every 12 votes. Put it this way.
Håvard Fiedsten.
Yeah, would vote for Håvard Fiedsten. And that's true. And if you look at it, Håvard Fiedsten's first vote was the 5th juggler. He was at, it was PJ. And then the 9th juggler who voted for him. And then the 14th juggler, Matt Hall, also voted for Håvard Fiedsten. Okay? And then this one here, Florence Huetz also had roughly about the same number of votes as Håvard. You know, they were in the same area of the chart. The 6th person to vote, Amran Vosval, voted for Florence Huetz. The 27th person to vote also voted for Florence. The 38th person to vote. So again, she had slightly less votes than Håvard, but you see, if you look through. Now,
it's a regular appearance.
So if you think about it, you should expect, if it was organic voting, like an organic reflection of how people in the generally English-speaking subculture of jugglers wanted their views to be expressed, you'd expect DJ Sturf to have juggling people, like the first person to vote for him would probably be in the first 20 people to vote for him. He would probably get a vote within the first 10 YouTube comments. But no, actually, the first person to vote for him was the voter number 235, Sam Pellegrino, who voted for him.
Who's actually also in the chat right now.
Yeah, again, it's totally fine. Totally fine. It's fine. But here's the next person who voted for him, okay? That was the 236th person to vote, called Nate Werns. And then the next person to vote for DJ Sturf was the number 237th. So in other words, nobody voted for DJ Sturf for 270 votes, and then suddenly 3 people in a row vote for DJ Sturf. Now, this is not to say that nobody who voted for DJ Sturf didn't think that DJ Sturf was in their top 40 jugglers. I'm saying that I'm getting signals that means that these signals are saying the reason why DJ Sturf had got no votes in the first 230 people, and then suddenly 3 votes in a row, and then 70 votes in total, all in this big clump with loads of people only voting for DJ Sturf and nobody else. It's a signal to me that DJ Sturf isn't getting votes because, and I'll go back up here, because people were saying to show their appreciation to their favorite jugglers, important jugglers, like they can name more than 10 jugglers and they want to show appreciation to their favorites, not to the only juggler, their 10 favorite jugglers. And it wasn't for DJ Sturf to use motivation to progress his skills, to work on shows and videos, and to contribute more to the juggling world. I mean, he was doing that anyway. I'll get onto that in a second. But I'm saying that I'm seeing incentives which misalign with other more important other more important motivations other than a juggler wanting to make the chart just to say he made the chart. Wait a second.
A message arrived and then disappeared saying, Simeon. Who is DJ Sturf?
Okay, DJ Sturf is someone who is a very popular video game streamer for the game Five Nights at Freddy's, which is some horror game. I know it roughly. It's like you get through the night, you've got to survive, and it's a horror game. It's a fun enough game. I've never played it. I've seen videos of people playing it. It looks fun. He's got like that. So actually, I can bring it up here. Should we
Somebody says they haven't realized that DJ Sturf is actually a real person.
DJ Sturf is a real person. He's a juggler. Again, I'm not doing this. So actually, I'm going to bring it up here. We can bring it up on the screen here. Look at this. This is DJ Sturf. Okay, so I've gone to his YouTube channel here.
101,000 subscribers.
So he's got 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. He obviously does live streaming or whatever. You see, look, subscribe. Five Nights at Freddy Ultimate Custom Night something 1.8 million views. Like,
wow.
He's a very popular. You actually, but then you look up here, you see his YouTube thing. He's got like a bow tie on. He's obviously a juggler. Okay. Now, he did get a vote. He did get a genuine vote. Okay. And I'll tell you who voted for him. I looked actually what he is, because his name isn't his
name is obviously not DJ Sturf.
His video game streaming name is DJ Sturf. His real name is Sterling Franklin, and Sterling Franklin is a juggler. Like, I've seen videos of him back in the day doing computer game stuff, but he would play like DDR and do juggling at the same time.
What?
This year he got into juggling, and so here's something that I found here as well. It says Emily Moore, who voted for him, he says, when the COVID-19 pandemic suddenly shut down the sports world in March, Emily Moore, director of the World Juggling Championships, running while juggling, had a backup plan ready to go. And Emily Moore, who I'm just off the top of my head guessing is probably the wife of Mike Moore, who happens to be the director of the International Jugglers Association. She's in charge of the juggling competitions. She voted for someone called Michael Bergeron, who happened to post a new world record for juggling. He did the 5K with 3 balls in record time. She voted for her. She also voted for someone called Sterling Franklin. And it's totally fine for Sterling Franklin to get a vote for taking part in a juggling competition from the person who organized the juggling competition that he took part in. Emily Moore's vote is exactly aligns with what I want. Emily Moore is using her votes to say thank you for participating in the juggling world to Michael Bergeron, who only got 1 vote, and it was for his juggling, and also to Sterling Franklin from Emily Moore, who organized that. Okay, which is fine. That's a perfectly good vote. And maybe some other people who also voted for DJ Sturf, they also happen to be part of the juggling world, but they don't know DJ Sturf as Sterling Franklin. They know DJ Sturf as DJ Sturf, which is very difficult for some people to accept. And it's very difficult for me then to pass out how many of those people are genuine. But I want to tell everybody listening this, and people watching in the chat now, 96 people watching in the chat, I had to manually accept votes for DJ Sturf and Flotep because they were so many people coming in and voting in exactly the same way that Google or YouTube, the YouTube comment algorithm, was flagging them as spam. So if somebody is getting so many people to come over and vote only for them that I'm having to convince YouTube that it's not spam, that's a really difficult signal for me to ignore that somebody isn't trying to spam it. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to say here. That's what I wanted to say about
also,
that.
I think the important thing here is also, it might be a minor thing because there might be a lot of people who know DJ Sturf. I know for a fact, for a lot of jugglers that I know, that they don't know who DJ Sturf is.
It's fine if people don't know who a new juggler is.
But now everybody knows him.
Everybody knows that DJ Sturf is a video game streamer who streams Fight Nights at Freddy's and also took part in a juggling competition. And the person who liked his juggling voted for him as Sterling Franklin. And people who don't know him for that, again, maybe some people do, but it's impossible for me to allow somebody to get 10th place on the chart off the back of them activating their fan base because them activating their fan base is a signal to me that they're not doing it because they want to contribute to the juggling community more or that they want to improve their own skills more. It's this other way. Kenneth, check his latest Twitter post. Yeah, look, I know that DJ Sturf does also share juggling videos.
What's DDR?
What's that? Dance Revolution. It's the dance mat thing. DDR.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's great that he does that with juggling.
No, I understand it, but I'm not going to there's 39 other people who are appearing on the chart whose incentives align with my incentives better, and their incentives align with the general, like I say, the generally online, generally English speaking juggling sub-community and subculture. That's who I'm doing this for. I'm not doing it to stroke DJ Sturf's ego. I'm not doing it to encourage DJ Sturf to come over and try and stuff the vote. That's not the reason why this chart exists. That's not at the top of my priorities. That's not at the top of the priorities of the other jugglers taking part who are involved in the juggling community. And it's not part of anybody who's voting who actually wants to enjoy it. They want to enjoy it and they don't want... I've mentioned this before when discussing this. I'm really pleased that Josh Horton doesn't activate his... Juggling Josh fan base on Instagram or YouTube because he's got millions of subscribers, and this chart is not for Juggling Josh fans. It's not for DJ Sturf fans. It's for the juggling community. And yes, look, Kenneth, I'm not going to have a full conversation with you here. Okay, I'm not going to have a conversation. I've never watched DJ Sturf's juggling or anything. I don't know him personally. I know he's one of the most chill dudes. But this is not an equal battle between somebody with 100,000 subscribers on YouTube and me, someone who has like 6,000 people. It's not a equal battle for someone with hundreds and thousands of followers and fans and who has millions of views and streams to thousands of people. This is not it. I made a Yes, I made a Yeah, I know, Kenneth. You said I made a judgment call, and you said I didn't even watch. I know, because the signals, I'm getting signals from voting patterns, which means that the incentives are aligned incorrectly. And as a game designer, and this is a game design project, and as an entertainer, and this is an entertainment project, and as a community, and this is a community project, and I'm leading this community project and being the figurehead of this, I'm making the call that those votes don't count.
And also, let me point this out. Easy. Let me point this out to Kenneth here. These judgment calls weren't made this year. They were made over the last... How long did you do this now?
This is now 18 years I've run the chart.
And these rules that Luke has set up to make it kind of manageable for him as well, they have been set up for the whole time. They are not new.
Yeah. I mean, there's other reasons that these things, and I do these things. And this is the reason why I don't normally talk about them. Good point about this is why I don't talk about them, because what I'm actually doing now, I know this is weird to say, but if DJ Sturf doesn't understand my point of view here, and he tries to activate his fan base again next year, but then he tries to be more sneaky, he's like, all right, it's coming up, everybody, I want to be on the chart, so don't only vote for me, vote for 9 other jugglers, and don't only vote for me all at once, but we've got to spread the votes out. Look, I'm actually now giving away what Google doesn't do with their PageRank algorithm. Like, I don't like giving away this information, because all I'm doing is making it more difficult for me to... I'm making it more difficult for me to pick up on these signals which are of unaligned incentives for next year. And so let's get on to Flotep. Kerry Pickford Jr., also known as Cool Juggler. Back in the day, he was Cool Juggler. Great juggler. In fact, we can actually have a quick look over here at his thing here. Where is he? Flotep. Yeah, he used to be Cool Juggler. Let's quickly have a look here on one of these things. I'm not sure if it's going to come through smoothly.
Look at this.
He does these things where he uses strings and things like that, and it's great.
Nice. When is that from?
Fantastic. That was from August. 13,000 views on that video and stuff like that. So all good. He's a good juggler. Been involved in the juggling world. People have voted for him on the chart like 10 years ago. He's been involved in the juggling community for a long time. He also activated a fan base. He has enough Instagram followers that when he puts a story, he can put a link in it, and he linked to my video and said, go vote for me, which again is totally fine. However, this was vote stuffing in a way which is kind of unfair, because most jugglers don't have enough Instagram followers to be able to put a link in the story numerous times, ask people to vote for them as well. And this was a harder call than DJ Sturf. Easy. No, doesn't appear on the chart at all. This was very difficult. And again, I just want to remind you all that I care about this more than you do watching here. I care about this more than DJ Sturf. I care about this more than Flotep. Okay, so here we go with Flotep. He did say his votes also were caught by the algorithm. They were also caught by the YouTube algorithm they were like, oh, this is all spam. YouTube was just like, these are all spam comments. I'm like, no, it's not spam. No, it's not spam. No, it's not spam. But again, I'm taking that on. So he got around about, I made a note here. Yeah, so he also got about between 70 and 80 votes. Again, also roughly the same level as Håvard Fidsen. Again, it was many, many, many votes until it was like, again, also 200 votes before anyone voted for him. But again, there were a few people who voted for him genuinely. He actually got about 23 genuine votes, including from, I think even Håvard Fidsen voted for Flotep. Maybe it's something like that. So he got genuine votes, about 23, which... those are the things that got through the YouTube algorithm first of all, and then also got through my algorithm to show that this isn't just spamming voting behavior. And so that is enough for him to get into the top 50. He got about the same number of votes as Jay Gilligan and Emil Dahl and Michael Karras, and Kerry Pickford Jr., Flotep, Cool Juggler was around about there. Great company to have the same number of votes this year as Jay Gilligan, who has been on the chart every single year until this year. This is the first year in 18 years that Jay Gilligan hasn't been on the chart, to get as many votes as that. And Michael Karras, who does similar kind of things with, it's the same kind of... I'm using Jay Gilligan and Michael Karras because they're also jugglers who have weird props on strings and swing things. You can see the things there as well. Next year, Flotep, Kerry Pickford Jr., I'd be really surprised if he isn't on the top 40 jugglers without having to do vote stuffing. Now, it's very difficult for me to tell him in advance, hey, don't try and do the vote stuffing, because again, I don't know what his incentives are. Like, he's got good incentives. He's also part of it. He's like, I'm going to vote for these people. And then he left it too late and he didn't actually vote because he thought the vote was closing the next day, whatever like that. Totally fine with all that kind of stuff. Kerry Pickford Jr. in the top 50 of the chart this year, didn't make the top 10 or 15 or whatever else was doing, because while his name was mentioned about 70 to 80 times or whatever it is, there was about 23 people. And again, when I say that I care about this more than you do, I look through all of these votes for him and I look at the YouTube names, I see if I recognize them, I go to people's YouTube histories and see if they've ever liked a juggling video, ever posted a juggling video, ever done anything, because you can see that with these YouTube channels. It's a bit more difficult now because most people are on Instagram, but I can look through, and 23 votes for Flotep. Great. Top 50 juggler, no problem at all. Next year, I'd be surprised if he's not in the top 40 because he's that good, and it's great.
Yeah, he does fun things, obviously.
Yeah, same kind of thing. So let's talk about Simeon Graham, because we've been going about an hour now.
We haven't even touched half of the topics.
Yeah, epic live stream today. Yeah, we haven't even got onto the agenda divide. Simeon Graham, Juliane voted for him. I know he had different things. Again, he had about a similar amount
last year.
Yeah, he had about a similar amount of votes. Again, enough to get into the top 50, not into the top 40 though. About the same number of votes as Jay Gilligan and people like that. Again, nothing
good
bad.
Company.
You know, getting more. If you're more than 20 people's favorite juggler of the year, you're doing great.
Yes.
He also had like 17 people vote for him. Just for him, which is fine, but then that's enough for him to get into the top 40, like to knock somebody else out of the top 40 who earned their way there organically without irregularities. And yeah, Simeon Graham would have been there. Somebody actually said, oh, it's a pity because the chart is still very white. It's slightly less white this year than last year, but it's still a very white chance. And Simeon Graham is a young black juggler from the UK.
Birmingham,
Great.
I think.
But again, if he had made it onto the chart, he actually had exactly one more vote than someone called Zalia Avant-Garde. And Zalia Avant-Garde, you should look her up. She's actually, I'm going to quickly search for here as well because it's worth saying. Basket, I search for here as well, so I can bring her up there. So again, you can look at her. This is.
Oh yes.
Have you seen her juggling here as well?
Amazing stuff.
So she has amazing basketball juggling as well, also within the top 50 jugglers again. And it's like, oh, it'd be really great if the black jugglers were higher represented. I totally agree with all of that, but I'm not going to allow somebody to do vote stuffing like Simeon did, and that's the way they get onto the chart. What I want Simeon to do is to work out what his incentives are. Does he want to get onto the vote? Does he want to get to the top 40 just because he wants to make it, and he'll do anything he can, and he'll knock other people off the chart and knock other people further down the chart, including other young teenage black jugglers? I would love if the chart... put it this way. I would love if the juggling world had more diversity in terms of racial diversity and things like that. And this chart is a reflection of how unrepresentative the juggling world is, in the Western world at least. Like if this was the top 40 jugglers from Burkina Faso that you've seen, that like, of course they'll be like Erin Liss and then everybody else that would be not white, put it that way. But again, it's one of those different kind of things. So yes, it would be great if Simeon was on the chart.
Go for it.
Next year. And that's the thing. Hadrian de Crozels. You know who voted for Hadrian de Crozels?
Who did?
Simeon juggler. Again, another young juggler. Yep. Lots in common. Numbers juggling. Hadrian
and you know France. What? People checked him out.
Yeah. Hadrian, he gets votes.
Does work.
This year, he got 36 votes. He got 36 mentions and comments, but about 10 genuine votes. And that's in the same park as someone like Tom Wall. I looked at roughly had the same votes as him. Penzen, do you know Penzen? Diabolist, who does 5 Diabolos on stage? Yeah. Hadrian de Crozels got about as many genuine votes as Penzen and Tom Wall and Anthony Gatto. He was like one vote more than Anthony Gatto this year. Of course,
that's great.
Anthony Gatto not done much in 2020 for juggling, but he's getting as many votes as that. But every year he keeps telling me that he's not putting his name. He's not trying to get other people to vote for him. He's not vote spamming. He's not voting from other accounts. And there is actually a point where I'm going to have to say to Hadrian, I'm going to have to announce anyone who votes for Hadrian, their votes are going to be discarded, because he's done this 4 or 5 years in a row now. And it's getting more and more difficult. Well, it's not getting more difficult. Now me talking about Hadrian and that I know he's trying to get onto the chart by vote stuffing, again, is just me telling him that I'm onto him and the systems that I have in place. And again, it's a signal. Like, I need to get these signals from the messy data that people put in. And the messiness of the data is signals to me that incentives are misaligned. And it's very tricky with Hadrian because he's trying his best to get onto the chart without genuine votes, when genuinely he's 10 people's favourite juggler of the year, which is something you should be proud of. As many votes as Tom Wall, as many votes as Penzen, as many votes as Anthony Gatto. Like, he's there. He is some people's favourite juggler. But he keeps trying. So Hadrian, until there's a difference in approach of him getting onto the chart, which aligns with the incentives of the people who are genuinely voting for other jugglers, he's not getting on the chart. And it gets to the point where anybody who votes for Hadrian, I have to discard the votes, which is really bad, because then I'd have to discard the votes of Simeon Graham, who is somebody that I met last year, Juliane voted for, and we actually want to promote as a juggler, to show more diversity and to help out, because he's a young juggler and like he's better than me at 9 balls already, which was really he was better than me at 9 balls last year when we juggled together at the EJC. So it's tricky.
It's very difficult. And it's and even if Hadrian doesn't do it by himself, other people do it for him, which is even worse, because they then make it worse for him.
Yeah, Sam Pellegrino has these ideas like you might have to require people to vote for at least 2 jugglers. No, the thing is, Sam, me telling people that you have to vote for at least 2 jugglers is me getting in the way of the signals. Like any person who says just vote for me is somebody who doesn't know enough about, like, is somebody who hasn't watched this. And now it's really weird that Kenneth Duckworth, who is obviously a fan of DJ Sturf, is actually going to go over and say, look, if he's watching, so he's going to go over to DJ Sturf, or might do, and say, look, this is how it works. You've got to tell people to start voting at the beginning, not start halfway through. Got to get everyone to vote for 10 jugglers and not other jugglers and stuff. And I hope that jugglers who know this and understand this and watch this will be able to understand that this is not a project for them to get themselves onto the chart by any means possible. It's the top 40 jugglers is for them to get themselves onto the chart by contributing to the juggling community, improving themselves as a juggler, improving other people, being a friendly person. So there's one juggler who always says, oh, I can't believe I'm so high on the chart. I'm like, you're a nice person. You being a nice person allows you to go. Being an honest person. And Hadrian de Crozels, or as he keeps telling me, it's not me, it's my brother, or it's my family members who keep doing this on my behalf. My brother keeps doing this voting. I'm like, how about you tell your brother to stop being dishonest on your behalf? Or Hadrian de Crozels is just being dishonest. And there are a few jugglers who've done vote stuffing before, which I've caught. There are other voters who, it's just someone actually mentioned before, Maria, she was on the chart this year. What's her name? Maria Martin. Maria Martin from Ukraine. Yeah, she did vote stuffing. Zach McAllister, I even suspect of getting onto the chart for the first time, or attempting to get onto the chart. It was very difficult. I had issues with Zach McAllister doing vote stuffing. It's difficult to tease these things out, but especially people who are wanting to appear on the chart. And it's not that they will be in second place. It's not that they'll be in 15th place instead of 14th place. It's like they're knocking somebody else off who I actually want to reward because their incentives align with mine. So
it's tricky. Now I want to address something.
Don't address Bruno. Let's see if we can. I just want to see if I can ban Bruno from the channel here. Where is it?
Oh.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
Here we go. How can I do this?
Remove. There it is.
Put this user. Oh, I don't actually know why I just clicked on that.
Yeah. Well, I don't understand. Just
hide this unit on the channel. Okay. Bruno Delgado no longer sees.
Yes.
No longer sees anything I post to YouTube or can comment on anything I want to hear.
No, I wanted to ask you because some people said, oh, why are you not just expanding it? Why are you not making it like a bigger list so more people appear on it?
Zach McAllister just said, I voted for myself on 3 separate accounts in 2015. Yeah, Zach.
Cheeky.
Zach,
cheeky.
We know, okay? Yeah, maybe 2014. There was a year that you didn't get onto the chart. I think it was the last year before you actually finally got onto the chart. Okay. So, yeah, it's a tricky... This almost says, I'm old enough to remember Nigel J. Green, and in all these years of the top 40, I don't recall any big number juggler making a specific call out to his or her fellows to vote for him. Yeah, Nigel Green. Wow, Joe. Nigel Green makes it in every show that I do. Nigel Green gets
a mention.
Yeah. Bruno is just made insensitive sexist comments that I'm not interested in replying to or putting up with. So sorry, Bruno. So that's the vote processing and the alignment of the incentives. So what was the question before?
My question was because top 40 is quite limiting. It's limiting to 40 people. Obviously, there are more people who should get a mention. So why are you not doing a top 50 or a top 80 or 100 or 1,000 or...
Okay, here's the thing. The reason why it's 40, because when I actually made the list that first year back in 2003, top 40 jugglers, I was like, top 10 jugglers. I was like, that's not a very interesting list, because it was just like, who's the most popular? It's like, yeah, of course it's going to be Anthony Gatto, Jason Garfield, Vova Galchenko, it was Vova and Olga, or whatever it was, Jay Gilligan, me, like other people who were generally known on the internet at the time or whatever like that. Not an interesting chart. And then it was like, top 20. And I was like, slightly more interesting. But then at the time it wasn't top 40 jugglers of the year, it was top 40, it was just like people's top 40 jugglers. Like, there's more interesting people further down. And then because I did it as like a chart show, at the end of every year in the UK they have the British there's the Christmas number one, and it's like the last, it's sort of like if you get we mentioned this on a podcast we were talking about before, there's the subplot in one of the subplots in Love Actually, it's someone trying to get to the Christmas number one, and the Christmas number one is a big thing. And the chart show, which I used to listen to all the time as a kid or when I lived in the UK, every week I'd listen to the top 40 rundown, and it was somebody running down the top 40. And it was just the top 40. That was it. And so I picked that number because it kind of matched what I thought was the most interesting list. And that's actually just stuck with it over the years. But I really like this number because top 20, it's actually too difficult to get into the top 20 because it's a very elite club to get into the top 20. Top 30 is less elite. But then between those 30 and 40, it's possible for someone just to come out and say... it's just it's if I just put in the work now, I'll be able to maybe get onto the top 40. Like it's top 40 is attainable by somebody in the generally online, generally English speaking juggling sub-community. If this was representing more than that, yes, I might need more, but it's a level where people can aspire to get onto the chart, 2 or 3 years later make it onto the chart, and then the elite jugglers who are right at the very top, who are putting in the most work, who are the best jugglers, who are the most inspiring, who are the most helpful, who are organizing the most and sharing the most, they're rewarded to be not just in the top 10 but top 40. And it would take too long, like I say.
Also, I think the more jugglers you want to put in, you then would have an hour-long video at the end that everybody has to watch through. And
also small things like tie breaks. There's these tie breaks, like all the top votes is very, very spread out, or generally very spread out. It's like one of these graphs, and then you get to that flat part of the graph, and you're like, who's in the top? This year there was one person who got 29 votes and was at number 41, and someone else got 29 votes and was at number 40. It doesn't happen very often. Normally there's a cutoff point, but as you go lower down in the chart, that just once you actually in fact we can have a look at it here as well. I can just see how many people got 10 votes, say 10 votes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. How many people got 11 votes? 4 people got 11 votes. How many people got 7 votes? 6 votes. All of these, there's like 10. There's lots of people who get like, as the number of votes they get go down, more and more people clump in that area. It's just what a graph does, just statistics. For people watching on the chat. Something like that. So let's go. Let me have a quick look back through some of these other questions and
but you didn't say how the tie breaks work out.
The tie breaks is if you got it rewards people going up the chart. The idea is okay, and this actually happened once in 2nd and 3rd place. I think in one year, like Tony Pezzo and can't remember someone else, like Tony Pezzo and
Patrick Elman.
No, I don't think it was Patrick Elman. But anyway, they
one person the previous year was a lower rank, and then the other person was in the higher.
Yeah.
And they had the same number of votes.
It was
the same spot.
In 2013, Wes Peden won with 179 votes, and Horvath Fiedson and Tony Pezzo both got 148 votes. Ties are broken by the juggler going up the chart the most. So Tony Pezzo was above Horvath the year before, and so that means Horvath was rewarded by going up. And the idea of this is that if somebody's been on the chart the previous year, and they were at 29 votes, and somebody wasn't on the chart the previous year, and they've also got 29 votes, it rewards people to go up onto the chart. This year, unfortunately, both jugglers had never appeared on the chart before, and Sarah Noel last year had fewer votes than Yuri Kitaro, and so Yuri unfortunately had the same number of votes and missed out, weirdly enough, because he got more votes last year rather than less votes last year. But it's been the same tiebreak literally since 2004, the first time. And I chatted. It's not new rules. I chatted to him, and he says, "Oh, it's a pity." But yeah, it was a bit of a pity. So yes, this is it. What?
Is it a log distribution?
Log.
This is
it's messy. I wouldn't say log. It is a nice curve when you look at it on a graph. Yeah. It's not exactly.
It goes quite steep
clumpy.
At the end. At the end, there's like.
Yeah.
Whee!
It's very steep. Like just to be clear with everyone, if we finally start talking about women juggling and men juggling.
After an hour and a half.
Delaney Bales got. It's like one of the largest ever gaps between first and second.
It was very clear.
Let me put it this way. Wes Peden was way down the chart compared to Delaney Bales, like by almost 100 votes. So anyone who thinks that Delaney Bales got to was at the top of the chart, or just missed out, or was promoted up above Wes Peden or Zach McAllister, no, it wasn't even close. It was a complete blowout for Delaney Bales. Bayliss. Yeah, Delaney Bayliss above Taylor Glenn. Actually, Zach McAllister, Wes Peden, and Lisa Van Breckel very close together. Just a few votes between the two of them. Maybe Zach McAllister's sister-in-law voting for him was the thing that swung it over the edge. It could be possible.
Yeah.
Probably not. But yeah, it was all very close there as well. Let me have a look here. So, any other questions? I just want to get to some other questions just before we go into here as well. I'm literally scrolling back through and seeing questions for. Does anyone say questions? Question for the borough: if someone went to their alter account and voted for one juggler, whether it's difficult, Simeon. Simeon, you're the one person I can't answer questions about how to better do vote stuffing next year. Just doesn't work, Simeon. You've got to. Just live and you will get more votes. Yeah. Just the fact. Here's the guiding principle. If somebody is going to vote in the top 40 jugglers of the year anyway, you can say, please vote for me. That's great. But if you're signing people up to come and vote in the top 40 jugglers for you, and you're the only juggler that know, like, here's the cutoff. Tell someone, who were your top 10 jugglers this year? And if they can't list more than one juggler, or even two jugglers, like you and your brother, or you and your mother, or whatever it is like that, whoever it is, or the streamer and the one person that the streamer sometimes talks about, like, the chart isn't for you. The chart isn't for those people. So that's kind of all I want to say here as well.
Yeah, hopefully at some point there will be juggling conventions again. You can go to the conventions, talk to people, juggle in front of them, do shows, do workshops. There are so many ways of getting into the community. Share good videos. Lots of ways. And be creative.
Scrolling back up through, question for the podcast. Is there any possibility of tracking demographic information of voters? No, it doesn't. YouTube doesn't really give you that kind of stuff very easily. Have you made a video talking about who you voted for? I did it a few years ago. I can tell you who I voted for. I can go over here to my notes. I voted for this year. Let me go down to the bottom. Right at the very bottom. I voted for Zach McAllister. Oh, so I put Zach McAllister above Wes Peden, maybe. I don't know.
Your vote was it?
Zach McAllister, Tom Whitfield for he's like one of the only jugglers to break a world record this year. Mike Moore, who I just love following him on Instagram. Bo Juggler, who I like his poi stuff. And he actually posts too much for me to follow him all the time. Like, it overwhelms me, so I don't actually follow him. Maybe I do now, but don't follow him. But I love going over and seeing his juggling. And Julian Sather, just because I liked his lockdown material this year as well.
And what he did for the community with organizing online conventions.
On the online conventions, I want to say thank you for that. And then Fernando Sumano, fair juggler, who's a hoop juggler who I really enjoy, and I met her at the Bruno convention. Saw her perform. It's like, who's the best juggler you've seen perform this year? It's sort of like, a hoop juggler that I saw.
But also, she was the best combat
fight night host
ever. Like, great.
Yeah.
We need to invite her at some point.
Yeah, we should do it.
She's really great.
Florence Huetz, Lisa Van Breckel, who had like the best video this year. Daniela Pelechkova, again, it's because we went to 2 conventions this year, and she was one of my favorite jugglers at that convention. And then Catherine Pancakes, who was a friend of mine, and I really like what she does online and with her Instagram and stuff like that. So I voted for, I think, all of these jugglers before, maybe. like I probably not Fernanda because I met her this year, but yeah, like these are all repeat votes for me, so it's kind of boring that I wrote.
Do you think people want to know my list?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, go for it. You tell your
all
vote.
Right, I voted for Rabia Ahmadi.
Yeah,
because I think she's just she has a great charm on stage and is amazing, and she's from Afghanistan, and I really appreciate that we get to know her.
Yeah,
I voted for Luke Burridge. Because I'm inspired.
That's how I beat Mike Moore this year.
I might be a bit
not too long. We've got to get
Aaron Stevens.
Yeah.
Craig Quat.
Craig Quat.
Because he's doing great stuff with inventing new juggling stuff for the community. Fernanda Sumano for the same reason.
Same reason as me.
Simeon Graham.
Yeah.
I met him last year.
Yeah, and you want to see him
Sophia
juggle
Altmans.
Yeah.
Because I really liked one of her previous acts very much. R2 Latinen.
Yep, he's fantastic.
He's great ring juggler.
Yeah.
Katrin Wagner is Katrin Pancakes.
Yeah.
We're friends, and she's really cool with rings and other things. And Kain from Japan, because I follow them.
I don't know him.
Really great. Like these.
Yeah. No, I looked him up. I didn't know him before this chart. Before a few people.
So these were my top 10.
No, Flo, don't stick to more than one video. I'm just saying, like, I have to, like, if I followed all the jugglers who I'm interested in, all I would do every day is like scroll through Instagram. It's for me. It's my own thing. I can follow enough people. Like I'm in contact. Wow, the concurrent viewers suddenly. You see that bump in the last bit, right? Well, let's get to it. Let's get to the meat of this argument and talk about game design and representation of women. Because for me, in this case, it's the same thing. I realize we're now watching ourselves in 3 different ways, which means that I need to take it away. There's too much of me. There's too much of me looking back at me talking. So what I want to say. So this year, I was kind of a little bit worn out.
Nothing was happening. Like you were preparing for the top 40s.
Here's the thing. I wasn't enthusiastic about the top 40 jugglers this year.
Weird year.
I'm like, I went to 2 conventions. I only performed at 1 convention. There's been like no fight nights. All it's been now is online stuff. And I've been following lots of people online, but even then I've not been juggling very much this year. It's been really hard. We've talked about it on the previous lockdown podcast that we've done. It's been really hard for me to, as a professional juggler who doesn't perform anymore, and as a social juggler who can't juggle socially anymore, and as a combat juggler who can't play combat anymore very much, although I did do a bit this year. Like, it's been really difficult for me to keep up my motivation. So my juggling motivation is, like, participation juggling motivation is low. I've been watching videos and seeing other people's lockdown materials and all that kind of stuff. But overall, I thought this is going to be a very weird year, and I wasn't really looking forward to it being, because I was just thinking, it's just going to be whoever's got the most followers on Instagram. Excuse me, I'm burping here. Might as well just be an Instagram popularity contest, which is, fine or whatever like that. And then just before I was going to open the videos, a few people started sending me messages on Instagram saying, holy shit, there's this thread over on Juggling Home. I'm very sorry for all of the sexist stuff that's happening over there. And I'm just like, fuck it, I don't want to deal with it. Like, I don't have time. I'm working on other stuff. We went out for a walk. On a walk, I got like another 2 messages of people saying, oh, look, don't worry, whatever, like this. And I was like, And I was just dreading what I was going to go find when I went over to Juggling Home.
You even got a FaceTime call.
Yeah. Well, I'll talk about that in a bit. Well, I don't need to go into all that detail. But anyway, when I went to this, and I saw Ariana proposing a quota system for the top 40 jugglers, and I was like, that is a terrible idea. This is like the worst idea that I've ever seen about a rule change to the top 40 jugglers of the year. Now, the people who've been in the live chat here, who've been watching from the start, know what I have here, like the incentives. Like I talked about the game design
on top of everything.
On top of everything, like everything here about that. So having a quota system of how many women are going to make it. I can't remember what the exact proposal was. Like, take everyone's votes and then have an equal number of men and women, and then push the men down and then elevate the women, or however it works out, all these algorithms and stuff like that. Terrible ideas from, and this is very important, from a game design point of view. And as you can see, all these different incentives, how they align, what mechanisms I put in place to reward incentives is all the most important thing. However, I suddenly had this glow, this ping, and I'm like, this chart can be way more interesting this year, partly because of, you're like, more representation of women, generally a good thing. If you don't agree with that, this is not the podcast for me to convince you of anything like that.
Especially after this year, no conventions. You had to kind of make up for no.
But let's put aside the no conventions. But here's the thing, like, I saw this as an opportunity No, let me go back a bit. The top 20 jugglers of the year, always fine. Like, great, no problem at all about that. But then there's this weird zone, and I said before, it's an aspirational thing for someone to get into the top 40 jugglers, into that like 30 to 40 zone, where you only need 20 votes or 30 votes to get in there. It's a way where people can go, oh, I can get in there. And the way that people realize they can get in there is be young, male, a teenager, do a DB 97531 with 7 balls and do some pirouettes or whatever like that, which is fine. Like, that's me.
You've done that.
As a teenage juggler, I was like, oh, numbers juggling aside.
Not a student.
What?
Like, going to university.
Yeah, when I was a student.
You've got all the time to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, this is one of those things. I was like, these people, it's too easy for these people to be overrepresented on the chart. And what it becomes much more weighted, or it becomes much more representative of the way that juggling is like in America, which isn't always bad. But I'm saying it's very competition based. It's very
North America.
North America. When I say America, again, sorry to use the wrong terminology.
We get lots of things like that.
WJF is very much sort of like, conform to this style of juggling. We will reward you for it, and we will give you validation for it. The IJA, less so now, but in the past has been very much sort of like, we are having these competitions and we will reward athletic ability. It's athletic, sort of like the voting for their main stage competitions. What they reward is 60% technical ability, 40% presentation. Like, it's right there in the rules, or in the past it has been. The international regional competitions that they do now, slightly different. You know, there's different things, different
people running it now.
Different people running it now and things like that. But all of these things were always representing, sort of like over-representing technical skill. And I say this as a technical juggler who has also done 7-ball pirouettes and all that other kind of stuff, like who is rewarded for the style of juggling that I'm talking about. These things were overrepresented on the chart, and the people who do that form of juggling were generally very young male jugglers. And that's why people like Illyri Kame, who also did vote stuffing at some point, again, is over it now, I'm sure, but things like that. Some of these jugglers, it kind of incentivizes them to be able to get onto the chart because their reward, like their unit of juggling, is rewarded in a very specific way. And the European Juggling Convention and German conventions that I go to and other British conventions that I go to, sure, when you say, who are your favorite jugglers, you will get people saying, oh yeah, Tom Whitfield, he's like over there doing 12-ball juggling or whatever like that. You know, those people like that at the highest level, they will be people's favorite juggler. But really, like, who did you see in the show yesterday who you were really impressed with? And I realized that I could shortcut the rules and who people could vote for by promoting more women jugglers, or allowing women jugglers to have an equal stage where they didn't have to compete on a technical level. Now let's put aside Delaney Bayliss and some other really highly technical women jugglers, but it would allow for not having the baseline level of being easy to get onto the chart, or to being recognition of being a good juggler, to be, can you do 7-ball side swaps and back crosses with 5 clubs or anything like that. And I realized this is a way to make the top 40 jugglers reflect, again, as a personal project, as an entertainment project that I enjoy not just watching 7 balls on stage, and I enjoy watching interesting jugglers in the gym who you're like, what are they even doing with those 3 balls? You know, those kind of jugglers, those are the people who I want to be represented. Again, let's go back up to those incentives, the people who missed the start. I was talking about the different goals and incentives of this kind of stuff. And just to go back there as well, I realized that, I'm on the wrong note. Let me go here as well. Like, to make a better entertainment product, to make a better personal creative project, to have this chart be a better representation of the mostly online, mostly English-speaking juggling world, to have a more equal representation of men and women and even trans and non-binary, or whatever you want to do. This was an opportunity for me to make the chart more interesting to me, and also going to these other incentives, to use it as a motivation for people to progress their skills, work on shows or videos, or contribute more to the juggling world. It was a way to really send that signal that this isn't only about who technically the best juggler is, because if it is, there's probably going to be like 4 women on the chart who compete with the top 40 men. You know, that's just the way it works. Just look at the world record list. Like, how many women are in the world, have ever been on the Wikipedia juggling world records? Although Tom Whitfield, I think, has got a better website, which I still haven't explored yet because I've been busy. To be recognized in the juggling community. And then also, what are the incentives for the people who are voting on the chart? To say thanks for something, to promote a juggler that they want to appear in front of more people, the representation thing, so they have a stake in the final vote count. And this rule change boosted all of those things at the expense of, again, to the expense of maybe the scientific, rigorous approach where I'm just like, hey, I just want this chart to purely reflect how people are voting. That's always been one of the lowest, well, no, not how people are voting. Like, I never want it to be a scientific or rigorous thing of like to pick the most technical best juggler. That's never been it. And I posted a supercut of me explaining that all the way through that I posted here on YouTube.
Every year he says this. Every year.
Yeah.
It's subjective.
It's subjective.
But
people always go, oh, who can juggle the most?
It's the best.
Who can do the best?
But then you ask, what is the best? And I think a person who is a really good teacher, I am a teacher, I know that. Teaching is something that you have to be passionate about. And if you are a good teacher, that doesn't just come. You can't just be a good performer and then teach people. That sometimes just doesn't work. You have to be a good teacher, and I think that's fine. If you teach people juggling, that should also count as a good reason for people to think, oh yeah, this person just taught me so many things and I progressed. I personally got inspired and got better. Yeah. And these are very, very good incentives.
Yeah. So that's the reason why I did it. Now, the reason why I didn't make a quote of how many jugglers is because, again, it's the game design. It's the incentives thing. I wanted not to put the burden on me for everyone to vote like normal and then me to change the results. Sort of like, oh, everyone voted like normal, and now Luke is manipulating the votes, because that feels bad for me as an entertainment product. It makes people who voted feel their votes. It's the Boaty McBoatface kind of thing. Oh, we all wanted it to be called Boaty McBoatface, and someone's just like, nah, just changing the results. No, I didn't want to do that. So I put the onus, I put the game design incentive mechanism bit onto the people voting, and they said you're not allowed to vote for more than 5 women and you're not allowed to vote for more than 5 men, leaving the non-binary issue like floating out there as well, like that. So I say floating out there, in other words, like if you vote for non-binary people, it doesn't count towards either men or women. Like take that how you want. I didn't want to get into that in the rule change videos because that's a whole other debate and a whole other thing that I'm not qualified to talk about, but I left room in the votes to do like that. So that was the rule change, experimental, just for this year. And in terms of a lot of these things, again, I found it more entertaining. I thought it was a better representation of the juggling world as I see it. Like, you know, it's possible to just be fans of all these people. It doesn't overly reward. Now, it does mean that it is more difficult, and some people were immediately like, oh, I want to be able to vote for 10 male jugglers or whatever. And I understand that. However, the priorities of teenage boys to vote for other teenage boys is prioritized slightly lower than people being able to more easily find people who represent them and to vote for representation. Other people will disagree with this, but again, for me as the person doing it, this is a continuation of a almost 2 decades long personal creative project, and for me this year was something that allowed me to make this chart as a personal creative project better reflect the juggling world as I see it. And in that case, it half worked, and I'll get onto some of the issues that I have with this in a minute, because I think this was a great success in many ways, slightly less of a success in other ways, which I'll want to get to. But do you have anything else to say? And I'll do this.
The thing is, not me personally, but Luke, and so me too, we are getting lots of feedback, right? Yeah. So we're getting the feedback that people also enjoyed it. People were happy to see other people which they hadn't even known exist. And there's, for example, some other technical juggler out there who lives in Russia, who's crazy, insanely amazing. Yeah. Wasn't on the chart. But if you don't know about this person, they can't get there. So people have seen so many more people that they hadn't heard of before, that they hadn't seen before. I think that is definitely a good thing. And yes, this year has mostly been online representation. Yeah. Absolutely. But this year was a crazy year for everybody, and everybody needs to acknowledge that. And yes, of course, it has been more online based, but I mean, it is an online based thing. It's a thing that happens on YouTube in English, and in the Western world is probably more represented anyway. There are loads of these things that makes this not inclusive, representative of many things. We just have to acknowledge that, and we do. We can't fix everything. We can't fix every world problem. But what we can definitely see here is some very interesting entitlements that appear in this certain group of people who think they are entitled to be on a list and then have discussions. And there's so many more different, really hard problems in the world, and then you think somebody is saying, oh, I'm not fifth on a chart but seventh. Oh my god. Like, we can see priorities here of other people, and some of these priorities are just a bit sad, to be honest. And I think this has been, for me, it was a successful experiment, and I really enjoyed it. And we get lots of comments and lots of good feedback. But the thing is, the good, positive feedback is never as loud as the 5 people who are really against it.
It is as loud, and I appreciate that more, because for each one, like, there's this Instagram top 9 kind of thing where you're like, hey, show the most liked videos or like posts that you've done on, and I was like, oh, let's have a look, and it was like, oh, it's just videos of other jugglers who I've posted over the last minute. They've all got like 800 likes or whatever. And I'm like, I got married this year, and me posting about who had the most, it was sort of like ever had the most. It was like at that time it was Daniela Pelichkova had a video of her had the most likes for any post that I made on Instagram, including me getting married this year. Us getting married. I should say us getting married. So yeah, but it's one of those things that, like, every time I see that like count, I'm like, yes, this is me contributing to the juggling world. This is the juggling world showing its love for each other. And those things massively outweigh a few people being upset about the rule change this year. Again, there's other things which I think are real grievances, but as a one-off experiment, which I said, please wait until the end of the chart and let's see if it's a success. Now, I think it has been a success. More people took part this year. More people voted this year than have ever before, even discounting all of DJ Sturf's voters. Put aside all of those people as well. More people voted this year. I had numerous people say to me, I've never voted in a chart before, but I'm interested in voting this year. There were a few people who were like, I'm not voting this year because of this rule change, and didn't. It's fine. Those were overwhelmed by people who were excited and voting for people as well, like that. So yeah, that's one thing that I want to say. What's up here?
We got some congratulations on our marriage.
Oh, thank you very much, Joe. Juggler in Disguise says, I wholly disagree that teenage boys generally vote for other teenage boys. That's not my point. It's not that my point is teenage boys are voting for other teenage boys. I'm just saying that there are opportunities for teenage boys to become more visibly good jugglers than there are for young women or women in general. You stand in the middle of the whatever it is, the gym. You stand in the middle of the gym and you start juggling 9 balls or 7 balls or training 5 club back crosses or 7 clubs or whatever like that. It's very easily to be immediately part of a crowd. Wes Peden is training and there's other good jugglers, and and Ivind is there and they're training, and you can go along and be like, oh, I'm going to latch my boat here. I'm going to stand next to them and get people to come over and do this kind of stuff. I'm not saying that's unfair. I'm just saying that they're inbuilt into the system at the moment is a way for young male jugglers to stand out more than older jugglers who are doing more interesting stuff, because they don't have the time to just work on that. And again, there's nothing bad. I'm saying this as somebody who has in the past set up my stuff and started doing jugglers and got crowds of people watching me at juggling conventions. It doesn't happen very much anymore, but it has happened and things like that. So yeah, it's one of those things that it's not that it's not equal. It's just that I saw an opportunity this time to make it a little bit more, again, as I personally, as the person who runs the chart, to make this chart this year more representative of the juggling world as I see it. And if people can't work with that, that's fine. But by making this rule change, I think the chart this year was more fun for me to make. It was more interesting for people to watch. It better represented the juggling world as I see it. It was more equal for women. I think there was 21 women to 19 men this year. Again, artificially inflated number of women on the chart, and I'm happy with that, because one of the incentives that people have is to make jugglers that they want to have better representation, or to be higher up in the chart, or to be more rewarded to have that. And it was an easier way to get more people to say thank you to 5 women for juggling than it is for men. So juggler in disguise and other people, we're not doing this podcast to debate with you in the chat, okay? This is not the point of that. This is me explaining the reasons why I put in place this rule. If you disagree with that, that's fine. But again, go back to the start of this video, go back to the start of this podcast, and listen to the incentives that I have in place and the goals that I have in place in the chart. The chart is not, and I want to say this many times, and I made a supercut of me saying this over and over and over again. The chart is not to determine who is the best juggler. It's not to decide who has the highest level of skill. It's not to reward the person who can do the most difficult tricks. It's to reward people for being somebody else's favorite juggler this year. So any time this devolves into saying that men are more skilled than women, or men are better jugglers than women, completely misses the point. What I'm trying to fix here is how visible men are compared to how visible women are. And it literally comes down to this. If you are a juggler who is a woman who concentrates on 3-ball juggling, where you catch a ball on your feet and kick it back up to behind your back, and you're training that in the gym, you are less visible than someone who is training 7 club back crosses. And there's no way around that. There's no way to discuss that. That sure, 7 club back crosses may or may not be more technical than catching a ball on the point of your little toe, or whatever these people are doing now when they're catching balls there. There's no way around it to show that some of the styles which are more represented by male jugglers are just more visible in general than many of the styles of jugglers which are more popular with women. And I like the style of juggling that is popular with women just as much as the juggling that is popular with men. But the juggling that men do is more rewarded generally, and just generally more visible in general. And so people actually have to program shows. People program shows. It's not just everybody who can do 5 club back crosses gets up on stage and does 5 club back crosses one after the other. That's what you call a WJF competition. It's not just rewarding only technical juggling, so everybody on stage who gets a prize has to have done at least 9 balls, which was kind of what it was like when I took part in the IJA competitions in 2004. Thomas Dietz won, and then somebody else won who was doing like 9 rings, and then somebody else did. I did 9 balls on stage, somebody did 7-ball bouncing. Like, it was so overwhelmingly rewarding massive technical skill, like big visible, like big patterns. And that's not what juggling is only. And the juggling chart, this top 40 juggler, has never been about rewarding only people who do that, okay? So this is not a discussion of who's better at juggling, because the chart has never been about that. That's a contributing factor. You
know this point about you said today earlier that this year there have only been 2 people doing world record stuff. If that would be the list, it would be very short.
Yeah, there's 2 people. Daniel Lysenko got 7 votes this year, and he broke the 11-ring juggling world record. And it's literally one of the craziest videos I've seen this year.
Absolutely.
Go follow Daniel Lysenko, or search for his juggling records from YouTube or whatever website you want to go to. Crazy. Technically the best juggler in the world, got 7 votes. I don't hear anybody complaining that Daniel Lysenko, who was one of 2 people to break one of the main juggling records this year, he should have been number 1. Like that, if it was purely about technical skill, he should have been there. And nobody's mentioned him. I mean, 7 people voted for him, but like in general.
But yes, women are there. Women are there. They are everywhere. But of course, then there are other things that make them not appear. They fear other things. They get other repercussions that you don't even know about. And so it is in many ways difficult.
The other reason why I was happy with the rule change this year is, like I said before, just prodding. I like it's entertainment. It's entertaining for me as a white man who is all the privilege in the world in this case, because it's my project and I can do what I want, which again, some people might be unhappy with, but here, just remember, this is a continuing personal project for me and an entertainment product above it being a rigorous chart, which is rigorously representing every technical juggling, something. Put all that aside. What I also find entertaining is kind of like prodding the stick and going, who are the people who just constantly like, why is it that this one person has never spoken to camera before, and the first time they do is after me saying, please don't be too negative, and let's see how this plays out, and we'll see the results of all this kind of stuff, and then at the end we can be more what am I trying to say? Like, we can be critical of it. So that's my job now. Here we go. My job is to be critical of this. Some people said this list is less representative than it has been before, and it's true. It is. I'm quite unhappy that this chart is full of ball jugglers and club jugglers, a few ring jugglers, like one person who also does hoops, one bounce juggler, no diabolists, no devil stick people,
no kendama.
Well, one person who also does kendama.
Yeah.
And then kind of, it used to be, like, say, an overrepresentation of the latest kid to do in DB 97531. Fine, that's it. But now, because there are more women on the chart, and somebody even noticed sort of like, oh, all women juggle with their feet. I'm like, yeah, that's like me saying all young jugglers do 7-ball side swaps and 5-club back crosses. Like, it's one of those things that, like, how many people on the chart were doing 5-club back crosses is the same. How many men on the chart who are known for doing 5-club back crosses, including me, who I selected a clip of me doing 5-club back crosses to include in the video that represents me on here. And then how many women juggle 3 balls with their feet, sometimes laying down and kicking up and stuff like that. Women juggling 3 balls with their feet were overrepresented in the chart this year. If you think the chart should be it should be an equal representation of prop use and being juggled. And it used to be that it was all 7-ball side swaps, or way more 7-ball side swaps. So now what's happened? Fewer 7-ball side swaps on the chart. More women doing foot juggling. More women doing like the flowy club juggling, body roll, club juggling, and things like that. Again, no problem with that. Some of my favorite kind of juggling. I voted for people who do exactly that. But it did, I think, make the chart this year at the expense of, like, any diabolist, more women. Which this year, the experiment was, can we give more representation to more women? And I think massive success. And then I say, does this chart more reflect the juggling world as Luke sees it and Luke enjoys it? And I'm like, no, because I actually really enjoy the broader width of juggling possibilities than this chart had this year. I find it a real pity that there's a poi juggler, a bounce juggler, and then all balls and clubs and rings. Like, that's pretty much what we had. We didn't have a Tom Wall doing crazy balancing stuff, and all these other people who Tom Wall probably wouldn't be on the chart this year because he was nowhere near having enough votes. But there's ways of looking at this chart that's saying, actually, what we're still doing is we have found, like, what's the most popular this year, and actually popular in the past years, because women doing ball juggling with their feet, like Ariana, Roxana, and these other people, I've enjoyed their juggling for years and years. They made the chart this year, fantastic, but no diabolist. And it actually, maybe it represents, like, if you pick out the top jugglers or the most popular jugglers or whoever it's going to be, and you go, all right, if we're going to make this more equal men and women, does that mean diabolists or hat jugglers or anybody else does that mean they have less chance of making the chart? I actually think, yeah, probably. But how many women diabolists have ever made the chart? I think it's one, and then lots of other diabolists. And how many women bounce jugglers have ever made the chart? It's like one, and then all guys. And then how many women hat jugglers have made the chart? Like one, and then guy. Again, hat jugglers is a bad example because it's probably pretty much only Lorenzo or whatever. But there have been other people. So it's
always a tricky thing to strike, right?
It's a tricky balance to strike.
And then we also have the people where they're coming from.
Yeah, let's put that aside, because I said before that my incentive is to better represent, or to have a good representation of what the mostly online, mostly English-speaking juggling sub-community was like this year. And for me, it's always been about 50-50 men and women doing interesting juggling and should be rewarded for that. But there has been a reduction in the variety of overall juggling skills on display this year, with a slight diminishing of 7-ball side swaps, a slight an increase of women doing body rolls and traps and body juggling, and women doing foot juggling, catching balls on their feet. And again, it's a balance to strike, which means that next year probably won't have this rule in place, because hopefully this has given people a push in the right direction. Again, this is not decided yet, but it's given people a push in the right direction to consider representation of women a bit more in who they vote for and who they watch and who their favorite jugglers are and just who they spend time with. And that's why I said before that I didn't want to put a quota in place. I put the work on other people. I gave them a week to see, can I even name 5 jugglers who are women who I like, and do any of those deserve my votes? And if they say nope, none of those deserve my votes, that's
then
fine.
They can vote
if just
for 5
one,
men.
if they were going to vote for Delaney Bales and 9 men, that's great. They can vote for Delaney Bales and 5 men. I didn't want to put any pressure on. 5 men. 5 men and Delaney Bales and then nobody else. And I think that's why Delaney Bales did so well. I'd say she was getting 90% of those votes anyway that she got this year. Delaney Bales and Taylor Gunn probably getting 90% of the votes they got anyway. Like I say, I have always thought that the top 10 or top 20 of jugglers is always like, to break through into that level, you've got to be elite. You've got to be doing so much. You've got to be, I say elite, not elite juggler, but you've got to be at that elite level of really popular and everybody knowing who you are for whatever reason. You've got to be there anyway. So yeah, it's one of those things that, like, there is a balance to strike. I don't think I'm going to put in place any special rules next year, because I think this is a good push in the right direction to say, now I'm not saying this is going to be the rule. I'm now saying, look at the chart last year. That's what's expected of everybody. If you can go a whole year and not find any woman juggler that you want to vote for, that might be fine. It's going to be fine. But Delaney Bayliss, sorry, I keep getting her name incorrect. I'll get it right at some point.
Yeah.
You should hear how many people.
You should hear how many people pronounce my name wrong.
Yeah, Kunzendorf and Burridge.
Luke. Ooh.
Yeah.
It's just a thing. I'm sorry.
Sorry about that. So let's just have a look at some of these comments.
Don't do that on purpose. It's just how we have it.
It seems like issues from both sides can be solved by having separate rankings for men and women. Yeah. Oh, by the way, if you missed at the start, like, if you want me to answer a question, the way to do it is please say, type before your question for the podcast, or question, like that. Have you considered 2 separate lists, men and women? No, I didn't consider that. I think that's terrible, because I'm a game designer and this is a game design project. What is the point? If you separate out men from women, all I'm doing is making it more easy for more sexist men to dismiss any votes that any women get. And I'm kind of annoyed for doing this rule change on the year that Delaney Bales was probably going to be Delaney Bayliss. She was probably going to be number 1 anyway. And now I've kind of like made it against her wishes, by the way. She even said, I don't want to have any, special rules put in place for me. I'm a good enough juggler that I can stand on my own in among other male technical jugglers. And in the case of Delaney Bayliss and in the case of Daniela Polichkova, who've made the chart many times before, who've both been top 10 jugglers before, it's true for them. But there's a whole other range of women who would normally be coming in the votes between 40 and 60 or something, who've never had a chance before, and this year was given a boost, and that was worth it. But again, not everyone can be Delaney Bayliss or Daniela Polichkova and make it into the top 10. And that's the thing. It kind of annoys me that I made this change. Like, if Delaney Bayliss had got to number 1 without this rule change, it would have been amazing. It would have felt like more of achievement. I think it's still just as much of achievement, because I know that she got...
How much ahead she was.
Yeah. Like, again, just to make it clear, Delaney Bayliss got 231 votes this year. The highest male juggler on the chart was at 138. So she got 90 something votes more than Zach McAllister. And Zach McAllister got 3 family members to vote for him. At least 3 family members to vote for him. I think Delaney Bales probably did as well. Maybe. I don't know. Here's the thing. So do you realize that in almost... Look, Mario, I understand that. This is not a competition.
Just go, when we publish this, you can go back and listen to
I'll upload this again. This is not a competition.
Nope.
This is an entertainment product, which is a personal project for me to be a mostly good representation mostly fair as I could possibly make it, representation of the top jugglers or the most appreciated jugglers in the English-speaking, mostly on-world juggling world subculture for the last year, with a way to incentivize people to do better as jugglers, to do better as people, to contribute more to the juggling community, to try and make it higher up the chart, to recognize people who have made it onto the chart, and also a way for people who are voting on the chart to say thanks to and show their appreciation for their favorite juggler, to promote a juggler that they want to be wider known, to have a stake in the final thing, to take part and be part of the juggling community. It's not a sporting event, and it's not a competition. It is a media product. It is an entertainment product that you're watching here. And this podcast that I'm talking about now is me talking about an entertainment product that last year 100,000 people watched on YouTube, and this year thousands and thousands of people have been involved in liking videos, enjoying videos, commenting on videos, and 600 people voted in. It's not a competition. It's a media entertainment product. That's what it is. And it's called the Top 40 Jugglers of the Year. It's not called the Top 40 Most Technical Jugglers of the Year. It's not called the Top Most Technical Jugglers of the Year. It's not called the Top 20 Men and the Top 20 Women of the Year. It's not that. It's called the Top 40 Jugglers. It's very vague. I say every year, this is you're voting for who has inspired you or who you've been thinking about this year, and that's it. If anybody disagrees with this, that's fine. Just know that 100,000 people watched the video from last year and enjoyed it, and 600 people voted this year, more than ever have voted before, because they agree with what I do with me, Luke Burridge, my opinions about this, not what you appear or what you think or what Spencer Androli posts about it or any other people who publicly came out against this. People are trusting me to give them an entertainment product which reflects the juggling world this year, or the English, mostly online, mostly English-speaking juggling world. I always want to preface this with that. That's what it is. Anyway, we've been doing this podcast now for 2 hours, and I think this is a good way to do it. Johnny Moore said, I'd say it's more like a survey than a competition. You can do better without people voting for you. It's a survey of people, of who people like in juggling. That's it. It's a poll, but it's not a competition. It's a chart. It's not an election. It's not an election. We're not trying to elect Donald Trump here with a system with electoral votes and this person, that person.
We should put in place an electoral college.
No, we don't want an electoral. It's not a committee. It's Luke Burridge putting in place a process to find the fairest representation. And if some people manage to scam their way into the chart or to do vote stuffing and get away with it, that's on me. That's my bad. That's my bad. That's me. That's a failure for me to allow someone to activate their fan base and to gain onto the chart without contributing to the juggling community, without using the chart as a way to improve as a juggler, diminishing the value of the chart to me and to other people. Okay, like that's the thing. And I think we've gone on enough about that. I'm not angry about this. I'm just explaining as clearly as possible. And if you go back to the start of this podcast or this video,
repetitive.
It gets a bit repetitive. How many times I'm doing this? Because now I'm talking to the chat of people like who missed the start of this. Go back and see what the incentives are and see what the goals are, and I'm trying to match up the goals that everybody has with their incentives of how they vote and to the final outcome, which is an entertainment project, which is a reflection of the mostly online, mostly English-speaking juggling world. This year it was a success, a massive success in terms of representation of women on the chart. It was a minor failure on representation of non-ball club and balls, clubs, and ring jugglers on the chart. Even ring jugglers or whatever. But like it was a downgrade in that way, a massive upgrade in terms of sexual equality, and a slight increase on representation of jugglers around the world. Like we had more people from South America. We had someone from Afghanistan that's never happened before. We had a few more Eastern European, like some more Ukrainians on the list and things like that, or maybe one, I don't know. But we have something a little bit more representation in that way. But then at the top you can say, well, it was less representative because the top two jugglers are both from Salt Lake City and Utah, and you're like, what, does it just happen to be that the two top jugglers in the world just happen to both come from Salt Lake City and Utah? It's like, well, kind of. In the past it's just been like all Germans in the top 10 or all Americans or something. Yeah, it's the mostly online, mostly English-speaking world, North American, and the United Statesian jugglers are going to be higher represented in the same way in Germany as well. Germany is higher represented in juggling, just because there's so many good jugglers from Germany, because they've got a really strong youth circus scene, and everyone gets into juggling really young, and there's more juggling conventions in Germany than everywhere else, and things like that. So that's it. In some ways, the chart this year is more representative. In other ways, it's slightly less. I don't really have very much else to say, but it all comes back to this. This is an entertainment product and a personal project by Luke, which is meant to reflect the desires and the actions of the mostly online, mostly English-speaking juggling world. And I think I'm going to leave it there.
Yes, I think that's a good end. I think it has been quite... I mean, it's not the first time we talk about it, and it won't probably be the last time we talk about it.
We've done a whole other podcast about this very thing.
You must all know that amongst the two of us, we had talks for hours about this before. So it wasn't the first 2 hours that we sat and talked about all this before. So put that on top of all the work that Luke has put into this project even previously, building up a massive library, building this Python script stuff. It's incredible.
And again, here's the thing. No matter how much everybody else is concerned about this and cares about this, I care more than anybody else. And that isn't me bragging. It's me working on an 18-year-long project. And that's... What's that? What's happened? What are you laughing at?
Where's DJ stuff?
Okay, yeah.
We are biting in our own tail now.
We've already addressed this.
Yes.
I'm going to upload a version of this video. I'm going to stop the podcast recording. We're going to continue with the live stream, and I can talk other things. But we did cover a lot. I know this is a 2-hour podcast or a 2-hour live stream. We've talked about a lot of stuff.
Thanks again.
I can't go into it too much. I can't go into everything too much.
Thanks again to the patrons.
Yes.
Patrons. You made this possible. Thank you so much again. We really appreciate every single one of you.
Yes, really, so much.
Every dollar you give us is amazing. I'm so impressed by the generosity of just people online. Thank you so much. It means a lot.
Yeah. Actually, somebody just said, do you battle duplicate names in your script? This is the kind of questions, actually, that I'd love to get into a bit more now.
Do you want to finish the podcast, or do you still want to put this on the podcast?
This is a really technical question. Okay. Let me have it. I just want to say I have a spelling dictionary which has taken 18 years to do. When somebody votes for somebody, and this is some people can go through the votes and go, I search for my name in the juggling and stuff like that. Searching for people's names in juggling is one way to do it, and that is the formulation of how I do the vote counting. Which again, I'm not going to go into the exact details of how I do the vote counting, but I'm just going to maybe post something here. Oh no, there's actually a limit here. Of how, yes, so I can't actually post this because there's a limit of 200 people in the 200 characters. You can only post a maximum of 200 characters,
and this is too much to post here.
It's too much to post here. But maybe if I delete that here, no, it's still 214. So there's actually 500 characters of variations of Zach McAllister's spelling name. So yes, I do have a spelling dictionary. It's a very extensive spelling dictionary. Way more people have way more spellings of Zach McAllister than you think. Pavel Evsekovich his name has very, very, very many spelling variations. I actually once output who has the biggest spelling variation. But then you get other people, like there's a juggler, a Japanese juggler called Yuri Yamamura, and there's another Japanese juggler called Yuri Yamamoto. And if you get those mixed up, those votes will be combined. So it's actually very happy. It's very handy that somebody once voted for both Yuri Yamamura and Yuri Yamamoto, because when I was first doing this script, I was working through this like as just a broad thing. We'll clump the name spelling variations together. That's actually a bad way of doing it. This year, check it out. Wes Peden was at number 4. Zach McAllister was at number 3. Wes Peden, Zach McAllister. One year, there's this juggler called Eden Zach. And I was like, why is Eden Zach getting loads of votes?
He's from Israel.
Zach. Yeah, he's a juggler. He's had votes in the past, and suddenly he was like shooting up the charts. I was like, Eden Zach.
Who's this?
And I was looking, I was like, my script is catching people who voted for Wes Peden, Zach McAllister, and didn't put them on a different line. They're next to each other. And Eden comes before both Wes and Zach in the dictionary. So that it was going, like the script that I was using going through. I had 99 problems, so I used regular expression, and now I have 100 problems. Yeah, like I say, I've spent I've spent 12 years working on the scripting that I've done here, and every year YouTube changes its comment structure, and every year there's a different set of names, and people will be like, oh, I just want to vote for Lauger, and I'm like, oh, Lauger, there's only one Lauger. Guess this year there was somebody called, let me just check this out as well, somebody called Anna Emily Lauger Pedersen, just another juggler with Lauger right there in the name. So if you search for Lauger, like just the word Lauger and not Anna Emily Lauger Pedersen and a whole vote thing. So again, coming back to Luke cares about this more than you do, no names slip through the cracks, or very, very few names slip through the crack. The spelling dictionary is very, very rigorous, and anybody else who goes through and tries to count this up doesn't have literally 18 years worth of experience and a spelling dictionary that goes back 18 years, and the way that I do the votes. Because the way that it works, there's various things that I've talked about over the past. Like if someone votes for 11 jugglers, I just take the top 10 and discard the other one. This year I did the same thing. If someone voted for like 6 men and 4 women, the fourth man would be the sixth man would be discarded and stuff like that. I have these different ways of doing it. If people vote more than once, I always take the later vote that they do. So they vote for 10 names and then they vote for another 10 names. It's whatever is later, and I check out and I delete the earlier vote. That's why I say don't edit your votes. What I want you to do is just vote again, because when I'm collecting the votes, I don't have time to only start counting the votes once the votes are all done and everything's finished. I have to be going through and checking, because if I wait until the end, I don't see like the different graphs and the different paces that different jugglers are going up and down the chart. It's more difficult for me to do it, and I'm eyeballing it, and so I'm spending about 6 hours every day for the week that the voting is open, making sure that this is as rigorous as I can. And I'm saying that this being a rigorous and scientific poll is like one of the lower priorities that I have when putting this together. But I care about this more than anybody else, like literally more than anybody else. So if anybody else wants to look at this data and go through it, you can. You're not going to get the same result as me because you don't care as much as I do. And it's really difficult for some people to accept that. But I care about this, to do this for 18 years in a row and to spend 6 hours a day for 6 days in a row, making sure this is as fun and as fair and as interesting and backs up these incentives for everyone involved and rewards the incentives for everyone involved.
Somebody's asking, do you have an estimate how many lines of code you have written so far?
Well, no, it changes every year. So what I do is I just go, right, that was the code for 2018, and then I put that aside, and then I modify it for 2019, and then put that aside. And I don't put it aside. It's not I'm starting again from scratch. But some of the vote rigging checks and some of the things that I do that make graphs to show when votes are clumping together, they change each year.
It's a complex thing.
It's a complex thing. So all of the systems that I put in place, for example, people were voting for Junglissimo, and then other people were voting for Dominic and Daniel and Manuel and Christoph, like individually. And I was like, do they count individually, or do I combine those together and that count as so I have like a check for Junglissimo votes where I individually look for those names. Other people, it's like someone this year was sort of like, and Lena, I'm like, oh damn it, there's 2 people. There's Lena Cohen, who is a diabolist, and then there's Lena Schuster, who's a club juggler. So I messaged the person, I'm like, hey, you say Lena, who do you mean? They're like, Lena, you know Lena. And I'm like, yeah, which Lena? Oh, Lena, oh yes, of course, because she was at the convention, you're at the convention. So for you, Lena was fine. I'm like, great. And other people, I'm like, oh, you actually voted wrong. It's difficult to do.
We're still doing the podcast, by the way.
Oh, is it? Oh shit, I thought I was stopped.
No, you haven't stopped it, but I wanted to point out, because you're now getting yourself into it. I'm sure, like, he dreams about this stuff. Like, he is so invested in it. And I also want to point out the people who say, oh, if you want to change this, do your own thing. Good luck with it.
Yeah.
You're getting yourself into a big thing.
Yeah. The reason why this works. I know it's weird to say, but the reason why people care about the top 40 jugglers of the year so much is because I care about it this much and are willing to put in this much work to make it into an entertainment product this year. Like I say, a full-time job for December, for editing 4 different versions of a video 3 times a day. Like I say, this is I'm not kidding about being a full-time job, but the work that I put into the voting and the rules and how I do this process, again, I care about it more than other people. So when someone says, hey, what you should do is set up a thing where you do it yourself, it's sort of like, yeah, be ready to have a full-time job for December. And again, thank you very much for the Patreon supporters who kind of made that possible, that I had this, this extra funds at the end of the year to just be like, all right, this is my job now, is it? All right, let's go for it. Let me just see these last questions. I'm banning you from juggling memes. Zach, close down juggling memes. It's just full of Juggling Memes is the Facebook group.
Don't start this. This is going to be a whole.
I'm going to stop the podcast. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, podcast supporters.
And watching the top 40
live stream.
jugglers.
It's been really great. We've had 100 people in the live chat pretty much for the entire time. So this has been thank you. I'm going to press stop on the podcast recording. I'm going to keep the live stream going, and I'm going to make this here.
But at some point we need to go and have.
Thanks a lot for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.